안녕하세요. 제 목소리 잘 들리세요? 마이 테스트. 아, 이제 들리시죠? 하나, 둘, 셋. 마이 테스트. 한다. 여러분들 합니다. 뭔가 바뀌었어, 화면이. 이거 뭐야? The journey is beginning. 이거 되게 메타버스 세계를 공간을 이쁘고 아기자기하게 잘 만들어 놓은 것 같아요 지금. 풀스크린으로 볼까요 한번? PC 화면 소리도 잘 들리시죠 지금? 뭐야 이거 또 어떻게 해야 돼? 또 움직여야 되는 거야? 이 메뉴 가가지고 메인 스테이지로 가면 되는 건가? 아니 움직이질 않아. 렉이 너무 심해. 나 컴퓨터 사양이 좋은 컴퓨터인데 왜 이렇게 렉이 심한 거야? 여기 세션에 보면 메인 스테이지 있고 유틸리티 있고 거버넌스 있고 임팩트 이렇게 있어요. 근데 오늘 처음 하는 게 메인 스테이지인데 메인 스테이지를 누르면 이게 여러 명이 나와야 된단 말이에요. 여러 명이 나와야 되는데 지금 여러 명이 나오지 않고 있어요. 이게 지금 사람들이 너무 쏠리다 보니까는 병목 현상이 일어나는 것 같거든요. 잠깐만, 에이다 가격 2,890원인데 지금. 예, 지금 되게 불안정해요. 지금 이 메타버스 공간이 사람들이 계속 지금 튕기고 있어요. 예. 이러다가 지금 소개 영상도 못 볼 판이야 지금. 자, 이거 봐볼게요. 여기 보면 이건 NFT예요. NFT 이렇게 만들어 놓은 거 있잖아요. 이게 지금 오늘 일정인데 처음에 우리나라 시간으로 12시 45분까지 메인 스테이지 세션이고 그 다음에 유틸리티 세션이고 거버넌스 세션이고 임팩트 세션이고 이렇게 나와 있는데 지금 이 메인 스테이지가 이 아바타 공간 세계에서 여기 사람들이 여러 명 나와야 되거든요. 다른 분들은 지금 여기 여러 명이 나와 있대요. 근데 나는 지금 이게 혼자야. 이 공간이 이렇게 움직이고 있는데 이렇게 해서 여기 가면은 이 세션들이 있어요. 무슨 세션이야 여기? 뭐 게임하는 것 같네. 리턴 투 더 메인 아일랜드. 메인 아일랜드 가고 싶다. 여기가 메인 아일랜드인데 메인 아일랜드에 사람들이 엄청 많이 있어야 되거든요. 근데 지금 나 혼자 있어 여기 지금. 지금 끊기는 것도 엄청 끊기고 아 미쳐버리겠네. 답답해서. 일단은 여러분들 12시까지 한번 기다려보죠. 12시 되면 뭔가 바뀔 것 같아요 화면이. 네. 아우 답답해. 속 터진다 진짜. 씨. 꺼야겠다. 이거 지금 정상적으로 접속되시는 분 있나요? 너무 느려가지고 지금 다른 분들도 지금 막 오류가 난대요. 지금은 좀 부드럽게 또 움직이는데 아 네. 돌아버리겠네 진짜. 또 끊겼어. 어이없네. 이게 뭐냐. 예, 12시부터이긴 한데 지금부터 밀려있어요. 여기 보면은 이게 채팅창이에요. 챗이라고 여기 보이시죠? 챗. 챗이라고 하면 여기 사람들 지금 채팅창으로 채팅을 올리고 있거든요. 이렇게. 근데 이거 봐봐. 여기 보면은 Damn, I cannot see anyone. 젠장 나 아무도 볼 수 없다. 뭐 렉이 심하다. 뭐 이런 지금 채팅이 엄청 많아요. 이 정도로 사람이 밀릴 줄 몰랐나 보지. 서버가 터질 줄 몰랐나 보지. 접속 성공하시는 분도 지금 대단한 거예요. 지금 나 이거 봐 또 이러잖아. 아. 새로 고침 다시 할까요, 그냥? 예, 말씀하세요. 그러니까 메인 스테이지로 오면은 사람들이 원래 기본적으로 여러 명이 있어야 되는데 이게 사람들이 너무 쏠리다 보니까는 안 보이는 거야 지금. 이게 원래 배틀그라운드 같은 그런 게임 같은 거 하면은 처음에 게임 시작 전에 막 모여 있잖아요. 그런 느낌으로 처음에 메인 스테이지 사람들이 다 모여 있어야 되는데 지금 사람들이 너무 몰려 있다 보니까 이런 현상이 발생되는 거예요 지금. 어때요? 좀 기다려볼까요? 12시까지? 여러분들? 아, 지금 렉이 장난 아니에요. 너무 심해요, 너무 심해. 이건 핸드폰으로는 들어갈 엄두도 안 날 거야, 아마. 아, 진짜. 잠시만요. 다시 시도해볼게요. 아바타 캐릭터가 움직이지도 않아, 심지어는. 예, 렉. 지금 저 말고 다른 분 혹시 부드럽게 지금 접속되시는 분 있나요? 저 다시 이거 껐다가 다시 켜야 될 것 같아요. 안 되겠어. 너무 심해, 너무. 이게 감당이 안 될 정도로 사람이 몰리다 보니까. 서버 터진 것 같아. 아, 또 접속 안 된다. 에이다 가격 볼까요, 여러분들? 자, 2,910원. 자, 2,910원. 이거 12시 되면 3,000원 되겠죠? 정말 엄청 심하게 끊기네. 아, 나왔다. 지금은 조금 부드럽다. 지금은 조금 움직임이 부드러운데. 한번 이동해 볼게요. 아, 또 이렇게 나왔어. 3,000원 12시 되기 전에 3,000원 될 것 같은데요, 지금 느낌이. 2,905원이네 지금. 비트코인은 행보네요 지금. 크게 변동이 없는데 지금 비트코인이랑 에이다랑 30분 보면은 되게 비슷해요. 근데 오늘을 기점으로 좀 디커플링이 될 것 같은 그런 예감이 좀 드네요. 예, 예. 개인적인 느낌으로는. 예. 아니, 중요한 건 이건데 지금 이게 왜 아무도 안 보이냐고. 사람들이 없냐. 여기 들어가신 분 있으신가요? 혹시 채팅창에 한번 써주시겠어요? 들어가신 분? 아, 키보드 샷건 치겠는데 이러다가. 아, 뭐냐고. 또 멈췄어. 아, 나 진짜 돌아버리겠네. 열받아 진짜. IOCK. 여러분 지금 유튜브 보시면 이런 거 있죠? 이런 거 다 사기예요. 이런 거. 이런 데 절대 들어가지 마세요. 여기 뭐 1,500개 주면 뭐 더블로 준다, 2,500개 주면 5,000 준다, 이런 거 다 사기입니다. 이런데 그냥 신고하기 버튼 누르신 다음에 이거 스팸으로 다 신고해요. 스팸에서 사기로. 이런 거 무조건 신고해야 됩니다. 이런 거. 뭐 내 지갑에 주면 2배를 주겠다, 이런 거 다 개소리입니다. 여러분들 조심하시고. IOHK 한번 공식 홈페이지 가볼게요. 어떤 식으로 나오겠는지. IOHK에서는 뭐 라이브 방송 같은 거 안 하고 있네 현재. 문제는 여기인데, 제가 여기 보시면 여러분들 이렇게 메일이 왔어요. Your sign in link for 카르다노 서밋 해서 이거 레지스터 등록한 사람들이, 그 레지스터 등록한 사람들만 이렇게 로그인해서 보면은 이렇게 Here's your unique link 해가지고 고유값의 링크 주소를 이렇게 줘요. 그럼 제가 이걸 누르면은 방금 보셨던 것처럼 이렇게 나와요, 화면이. 그래서 이제 가상 메타버스처럼 가상의 공간을 만들어서 이제 거기서 이제 서밋 회의하는 거를 볼 수 있는 것 같은데, 지금 이게 사람들이 너무 밀려가지고 지금 접속이 안 돼요. 미쳐버리겠네 진짜. 이거 봐, 여기서 또 멈췄잖아. 아, 나 잠깐만요, 여러분들. 여러분들이랑 이 순간을 같이 하려고 내가 맥주까지 이렇게 챙겨왔는데 화면이 나와야 뭘 보여주지. 구독과 좋아요 좀 부탁드릴게요. 네. 제가 지금 살고 있는 곳이 의정부시거든요. 근데 이거 내가 등록도 안 했는데 찍히네, 내 주소가. 뭐지? 소름인데 이거. 이 분 남았는데, 아, 나 미쳐버리겠다 진짜. 지금 대형 파트너십이 맺을까 말까 지금 이 중요한 시점에서 이렇게 렉이 걸리면 어떡하지? 아마존 파트너십은 아닙니다. 그건 아니에요. 예, 그리고 너무 여러분들 큰 기대를 하시면 실망이 크니까 일단 기대를 저버리세요. 작년 서밋도 그렇지만은 막 말만 되게 그렇게 업되게 한 다음에 실망하시는 분들 여러분 계셨거든요. 그러니까는 큰 기대하지 마세요. 뭐 대형 IT 기업 뭐 파트너십 맺는다라는 생각하지 마시고 일단 마음을 좀 비우시는 게. 잠깐만 있어. 저 화면이 또 멈췄어. 아, 나 진짜 씨. 이거 봐, 또 응답되기 나와. 혹시 접속이 잘 되시는 분 계신가요? 여기 지금 서밋. 아, 이거 맥주를 준비했는데 지금 먹지도 못하겠네. 내가 우리 집을 등록을 안 했는데 왜 우리 집 주소가 나오지 캐릭터 위에? 신기하네. 근데 저 여러분들께 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 정말로 저기 큰 기대는 안 하시고 예, 그렇게 보셔야지만이 예, 그나마 여기 지금 서밋 등록하신 분 중에 개인 메일로 링크 주소 나오신 분 혹시 계신가요? 링크 주소 들어가시면 이 화면이 나오는데 지금 전세계 각지에서 지금 이 서버로 들어가다 보니까 계속 지금 화면이 멈춰요. 예, 곧 이제 시작할 텐데 잠깐만요. 아, 나 미치겠네. 봐야 되는데. 아니, 라이브는 지금 두 번째예요. 그 스마트 컨트랙트. 제가 그러면 여러분들 그러면 그렇게 할게요. 지금 아까 제가 온라인 서울 카르다노 서밋 줌 화상 회의를 했었거든요. 거기서 다른 분들이랑 좀 소통을 했었는데 지금 줌 화상 회의로 가서 거기 있는 분들 현재 상황을 좀 봐드릴게요. 잠시만요. 잠시만 이거 좀 차트 좀 보고 계시고. 외국인 방송 잘 나온다고요? 제가 한번 좀 찾아볼게요. 그러면 아, 이걸로 보면 되겠네요, 여러분들. 제가 보여드릴게요.
To what we have here today, which is one of the largest, most prominent cryptocurrency blockchain projects in the entire world. I've been told that at this moment over 80,000 people have registered and are watching across the world, more than 100 countries. There are people here, there are people in London, Cape Town, Tokyo, all across the world, events all across the world, just like you, building, thinking, dreaming. So I took a moment to reflect, what is this all about? Why are we here? What are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? Where does all the resilience come from? Cardano is special in that it probably is the most resilient of all cryptocurrencies, perhaps outside of Bitcoin. How do we know that? Because we get shit from everybody. Yet we're still here. We're still alive. We're thriving. We're growing. You know, I remember when we announced the Ministry of Education deal. We spent 3.5 years to negotiate.
소리가 조금 적게 나오니까 좀 이해를 해주십시오, 여러분들.
What was the reception in the industry? They said, "Oh, well, anybody can do that." Well, then who did? Just us. I remember CoinDesk, after the New York Times announced the deal, they said, well, we can't confirm it, even though we have a video of the minister himself talking about it. We're waiting for comment from the ministry. Maybe it's the ministry's secretary who has to confirm it. And I just wonder, why the hell do these people come at us? Well, it's because this is a movement that's united by one general principle, which is we're crazy enough to dream that we can. There's a lot of optimism in this room. There's a lot of belief in this room that we can do things that no one has ever done before. You don't like your government? Rebuild the damn thing. You don't like your money? Make new money. And as an example, I was sitting in my office a few months ago, and I have this stuffed lobster that we bought, and just sitting there, and I said, you know what? Let's make this thing alive. So I
목소리가 너무 작잖아. 이해를 못 하겠네. 스피커를 켜야겠네.
And now it's begun a journey. Everybody in the whole community knows about it.
Yeah, I can go full screen. I was leaving it for closed captioning.
And you know what? We're sure as hell gonna NFT it. You know that's happening.
소리 좀 들리세요, 여러분들?
Decades
말하는
from
거?
now, it's gonna become something that's real. A stuffed lobster, move it 5 feet, and it becomes something alive. This is not a superpower that I have. It's a superpower because of this platform. The idea is here that all of you have. Every single one of you. That's why Cardano is viewed sometimes well, sometimes not so well. It is an instrument of change for the world. Where we started so long ago, 2015, and the journey that we've gone on, we've seen the growth of an ecosystem to a community in the millions. We have seen national press, we have seen heads of state make deals with us, shook hands with a lot of people. And where are we going? Well, I'll tell you.
제가 여러분들 통역해드릴게요. 제가 여러분들 유튜브 좋아요 구독 눌러주시면 해줄게요.
Rather than the things that I did. And that's what makes it so special, it's so powerful and so durable. Look at Catalyst. When we started that last year, a few hundred people. Not a lot. Just a little bit of conversation. You could literally fit all of the people participating in a Zoom call if you wanted to. Now there are tens of thousands. As we go into 2022, there'll be hundreds of thousands, millions eventually. How much collective knowledge, intelligence, capability, execution is embedded in that? How do you stop that? Especially when it's completely.
제가 봤을 때도 처음에는 그 별다른 내용 없을 거예요.
Control of the funds, the community's in control of the ideas, they're in charge of the challenges, they're in charge of the ventures. The ones who do well continue to get funding, the ones who don't die off. That's a self-evolving system that continues to grow and bootstrap. You blink and it's an army. You blink again and it's a nation. You blink again and it's the whole world. And that's just one thing inside Cardano. We look at the progress with Ouroboros. Years ago we said, hey, let's figure out a better way of doing things, a better engine that can process billions of transactions for billions of people. Well, it turned out to do that, you had to do a whole bunch of theory. Everybody thought we were crazy because we had to solve a half dozen really hard problems in computer science. Not to be dissuaded, we did, as a community, as an ecosystem.
아마존 드립할 때 딱 맥주 따야지.
The entire time and way. Didn't matter. Kept the head high, went through the peer review process, and now look at what we have. We have Proust, Genesis, Chronos, Redux, all these papers that basically laid out the entire corpus of the theory of proof of stake. We didn't just write a protocol, we invented a new field of science just for this project. And that's just another thing. We look at Plutus. We launched Alonzo back in September. Well, September this month. September 12th. A little tired. And we've introduced the extended Utxo model. Now, where the hell did this thing come from? Did we invent it? Yeah.
여러분들 아마존 그렇게 외쳐봤자 아마존은 아닙니다. 여러분들 너무 기대가 크세요 지금. 너무 기대가 크면 실망도 커질 수밖에 없습니다 진짜로.
Why? Because we look to the future. How will people use these systems in 2025, 2030, 2040, 2050? When you have billions and billions of transactions and applications and nation states running these things, doing their voting systems, their payment systems, their stock markets. It's not practical and feasible to run all of these things on some bizarre virtual machine in the sky. The point is the ledger is the proof checker. The point is the ledger is the validator. It's the thing that gives you certainty that what the person has told you is right. So simple of a concept. Yet, almost everyone in this space is ignoring that and chasing the exact opposite.
여러분들 저 카르다노 전문 채널이니까 에이다 투자하시는 분들, 뭐 카르다노에 관심 있는 분들 구독이랑 좋아요 좀 눌러주세요. 앞으로 좀 많은 영상들 많이 올릴 거예요 제가.
Because that required us 4 years. And a team of scientists who've been building programming languages for decades.
지금 라이브 맞아요.
That's hard. And we stood on the shoulders of giants. Dozens of papers. Dozens of ideas and projects. Things like BitML and Simplicity from blocks.
별 내용 없어요 지금.
Who were thinking about exactly this same problem. And that's just one thing in this model. You need sidechains. You need light clients. You need all these other features. And
소리가 지금 이게 최대로 킨 거예요. 못
This
켜요.
is the point of the project. It's an innovation engine. We're never, ever once distracted or dissuaded. We don't succumb to pessimism. We keep saying the same thing.
지금은 별로 통역해줄 만한 그런 내용이 없어요. 핵심 내용이 아니라 그냥 이제 암호화폐에 대한 전반적인 설명, 네, 그런 것들이에요. 지금 제가 보니까.
And that's what makes this special. You see, the world is changing. When we look throughout the 21st century, because of technology, because of globalization, everything is up for grabs. Our institutions are fading. There's a lack of trust and dignity and respect between people. Things that we used to take for granted as kids are no longer solid and stable. A decade ago, if I heard something from the CDC,
찰스는 87년생입니다. 33살. 우리나라 나이로 35.
If we were told something from a
잠깐만, 에이다 간다고요?
scientific institution, we just take it on canon. Most people in society, they have a little bit of skepticism, even the integrity of elections.
아이씨, 아직 3,000원 안 됐잖아.
It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. The fact that the crowd, the swarm, the masses of society are having troubles digesting this in meaningful percentages is destroying
예,
society.
찰스 호스키스는 87년생,
The fact that
35살.
our monetary systems are crumbling. We are told that it's okay to print $6 trillion out of thin air in this nation.
얘가 좀 탈모가 있어요. 근데 저보다 동생인데.
Anybody buy any wood lately? Food lately? And then the people who supposedly know what's going on, what do they tell us? They say, well, as long as you exclude the price of meat.
아마존은 아니라고 지가 트위터에서 말했어요. 아마존은 아니라고.
That's what we're told. So what does it mean? It means that everyone in the world is taking a step back and they're saying the time has come for new systems. The time has come for a return to honesty and integrity. The time has come for us to trust each other somehow in some way. Why does our industry command such a large market cap and so much evangelism and so much passion? It's because this is the only industry that's figured out a path to get us there without an empire. A path to get us there without kings and presidents and dictators. This is an industry that promises us that there is a way to solve the problems of the future, whatever they may be. The problems that emergent technology gives us, the fact that we're burning our planet out at an alarming rate, species going extinct all the time, the problem of all the violence that's come.
여러분들 제가 여러분들한테 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 에이다만 보지 말고 카르다노 플랫폼 자체를 보시는 게 어떨까. 진짜 그냥 에이다 돈만 당장 내 돈 올라가는 게 좋지만은 이 찰스 호스키슨이 말하는 카르다노 플랫폼이 어떻게 돌아가는지 그런 거에 대해서 조금 공부를 해보셨으면 어떨까 했어요. 너무 내 돈 에이다 올라가는 것만 집착하지 마시고 진짜 이 카르다노를 공부해보시면은 이게 생각하는 게 바뀌어요.
These are basic things. We put them in constitutions. We put them in laws. We promise each other we'll treat each other this way. But you know what happens? Humans happen. And while the individual may be virtuous, the collective, somehow, some way, if left unrestrained and unrestricted, they sometimes have problems. The magic of this industry is that we can create almost an artificial law of physics for society. We can take the rights that we believe that we have earned and should have, that we should be born with, and we can put it into a blockchain. And then suddenly people can't cheat. The most powerful way of demonstrating that is what Bitcoin accomplished. You see, all these monetary systems, they say, oh, well, no, they have rules and predictability, and we won't intervene until we do. Then suddenly this thing comes out that promises 21 million. That's it. Can't change it. Can't reverse it. These are the rules, regardless of the circumstances. Then you see Silk Road happen, Mt. Gox happen, You see dozens of massive issues happen. You see nation states get involved and yell at it. Has it changed once? No. Not even when the core developers themselves were on the losing end of the game. And what does that mean? It means that if you can take those concepts and principles and put them into social systems that secure your vote, your voice, your dignity as a person, no matter who's on top, you're going to be treated fairly. That's the unifying theme, despite all the tribalism and the sectarianism and the fights that we've noticed in this industry that keeps us together, is that we just want to be treated better. We just want institutions that don't lie to us. We just want predictability. We just want to live in a world that's peaceful instead of one that's filled with chaos. Now, how do we get there? This all sounds good and fine. Well, first you have to build an army. We've got a pretty good one right here, don't we? Then you have to arm your army.
여러분, 평단이 중요한 게 아니라 개수가 중요한 겁니다. 개수가.
You first have to convince them that they have a lot of power collectively and individually. You have to give them the ability to think about how they want to live their lives. You have to give them things that they can give to others. So, provisioning. Well, we give them catalyst. We got that. Then you got to give them a platform upon which they can do commerce, express themselves, their voice, their vision, their vote. So what's coming? Well, we've 3 eras into this. We have Byron down. That was very hard because we had to learn how to do that. We have Shelley, and now we have thousands of stateful operators. CARDANO is completely independent. It's run by them. It's a decentralized movement. It's a virtual resource. It is damn near impossible to shut the network down now. CARDANO has become like Mick Jagger. It shall never die. That was Shelley. Gauguin was programmability. It was the ability to start running things. In the coming months and years, we will see hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands of decentralized applications built by you, the community, empowered by Catalyst, empowered by collaboration. And those applications will run DEXs and oracles and voting systems and NFT marketplaces. Those are the things we see today. But eventually those applications are going to start covering bigger and bigger pieces of society. One of the reasons why Africa is so promising as a marketplace is because that entire continent is going through a massive upgrade right now. All the legal systems are being updated. All the infrastructure is being updated. The voting systems, all these things. The next 5 to 10 years, all of Africa is going to be completely online and completely digital, and they have no loyalty or preferences to anything in the legacy world. There are no grand Microsofts and Facebooks and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgans to contend with. And there's a tireless population who's very young. Many of the countries, over 70% of the people are under the age of 30, who grew up as digital natives, and they see the world they could have, the places they could go, the things they could achieve and accomplish. And thus, they vote for that. They protest for that. They fight for that. No one wants to live in a corrupt place. No one wants to live in a place of hopelessness and will never get there. So guess what? Give collectively billions of people those kinds of tools, and they're going to have a revolution. That's exactly what's going to occur. And they're going to build something so much better than what we have here. They're going to build institutions far more durable. And hopefully they're going to build it on Cardano. That's our labor, our pursuit. That's why we fight so hard. We're traveling all around as much as we can. And so far we brought in millions. And if they do that, those systems will run at costs that are orders of magnitude lower than the systems we have right now. Remittances will be the cheapest in the world. Credit will be the cheapest in the world. Best insurance system in the world. Most reliable voting system. You talk about liquidity. The most efficient stock markets. The ability to take a $5 million company and have a micro IPO. These are the experiments that are going to be conducted in Kenya, and Ethiopia, and Rwanda, and many other places. And you know what that means is they're going to work. And when they work, they'll create billions and then eventually trillions of dollars of wealth. And with wealth, there's power. And the rest of the world will see that. And they'll say, me too, I want to get on that. But the only way they can is to become like us, to join this movement, to change the way those systems work, to demand integrity and inclusive accountability and transparency and all the things that we're now enabling. Now, there's a lot of work to do. The rest of the roadmap has things like Basho and Voltaire, and next year is the first year where we do 2 of them instead of 1. We're already working real hard. We've been working for 3-4 years now on Basho, for 4 years on Voltaire. So what happens? Well, main chain, the programming model improves. Keep doing things to make the developer experience better. It's going to be kludgy.
I don't use my Twitch very often, so if you're over there, thank you. But
applications come out.
I don't
Special
use it that often.
accommodations are made to make them run faster and more optimally. These types of things. So there's a lot of Shelley
중계방송입니다. 중계방송.
related work that's in the cleanup crew. And there's a whole group of people that worry about that. There's more than 12 development companies at this point that work on Cardano's core infrastructure all across the world. SUD never sleeps on development of Cardano. Basho is about saying, okay.
아마존 아닙니다, 여러분. 제발 아마존 언급 좀 그만하세요. 아마존 아니라고 차스가 트위터에도 나왔어요.
Get it off chain, into side chains, to explore with new computational models. There is a place for technology like Ethereum. There is a place for technology like Yella. There is a place for technology that has yet to be invented. The point of Basho is to open that up and bring it to the ecosystem so that we can run at a scale of millions to billions of users sustainably. The point of Voltaire.
지금 그 파트너십 관련된 거는 지금 바로 안 나와요, 여러분들. 한 2시나 3시 정도에 나올 거예요.
And all that come after you.
오늘 12시부터 아마 6시까지 아침 6시까지 방송하는데 저기 조금 체력 괜찮으신 분들은 계속 보시고
In addition to that, the hard fork combinator has to be totally in the control of the community. All of these things, these are cleanups. But in the process,
1시 반, 2시, 3시 뭐 이쯤 발표를 할 거예요. 파트너십이 어딘지.
Why not? You have rights. Monetary policy is different than just adding a
이게 오늘 12시부터 6시까지 하는 거니까는 이게 다 세션별로 나눠져 있어요. 처음에는 그냥 기본적인 가상화폐에 대한 어떤 구조로 이어졌고 뭐 어떻게 발전해 나가야 된다라는 이런 설명만 할 거고 이 다음 세션에서 아마 할 거예요. 제가 알기로는 좀 제발 좀 여러분들 참아 주십시오. 예, 부탁드립니다. 예. 천천히. 예.
And treat it like a biological system where Cardano understands its own design. Spend all this time writing formal specifications.
치킨이나 하나 시켜요, 여러분들.
Is so that you get high quality software. But another good reason to do formal specifications is that it's the DNA of the system. And what do cells have? DNA inside of them. The system should know itself and its own design. Because then any person who has a full node has a full copy of all that meta, all that design. That's how you create resilient organisms that can never die, is you build in redundancy into them. You build in replication into them. And you create a process upon which that DNA can evolve. And then we'll see dozens of commercial clients flow from that. If you don't like Haskell,
채팅창에 저기 네, 뻘소리 하시는 분들 알아서 해요.
JavaScript, Python, Java, mainstream languages that mainstream developers know. It's important that when you're doing new things, you do it right, and it's correct, and you have high assurance. But let's be honest here. There's a reason there's 25 million developers. There's a reason there's a diversity of programming languages and thought and infrastructure. So, as the Voltaire age grows and we get the DNA of the system, the specification of the system into the chain itself, and the community's in control of where do we go in the deep future, there's also going to be a Cambrian explosion of infrastructure. We're already seeing this with DC Spark, building all this beautiful Rust infrastructure. Projects like Ada Light, I think there's one called CC Wallet. There's dozens of these floating around. And right now they're nascent and young, but with the resources of Catalyst, the rigor of the community, the ability to follow a process, they will grow. And over time, they will grow to be larger, bigger, and better than anything we see in the rest of the space, because they're built from the bottom up, resilient. Dozens of them will become hundreds of them. Dozens of languages will become hundreds of languages, and this ecosystem will continue to strengthen. continue to be more useful. Now, a lot of people call us a ghost chain, which is just damn perplexing. I even wore a Ghostbusters outfit just to prove a point. And so, if we're a ghost chain, how can we get such great partners? We mentioned the Ministry of Education. Well, did you know for the last few months we've been negotiating with a Fortune 250 company? We closed the deal. So who did we close with? Well, talking about digital transformation of the individual and the rights of humanity, that's fun, but businesses need to transform as well. So there happened to be a great business that came by the office a few months ago, and they said, hey, you know, we're right now in the middle of a giant transformation of our business, and we would like to have a discussion about how do we bring blockchain into this? How do we use these techniques and concepts like DIDs and microtransactions and having a wallet right on the cell phone? How do we pull those pieces together? Well, that company was Dish. And we said, boy, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's go workshop that. About 3-4 days a week of meetings, again and again and again. We eventually got to a point where we made a deal with Boost Mobile.
근데 제가 다시 봐도 느끼는 건 찰스는 되게 스피치를 잘해. 진짜 스티브 잡스 같아. 블록체인계에. 스피치가 좋더라고. 이더리움 비탈릭에 비해서 얘가 비즈니스를 좀 할 줄 알더라고.
One can build wallet infrastructure. They can build a dApp store. They can do all kinds of things and bring this to the consumer's phone, just like that. Now, why us? Well, because there's peer review, there's high assurance software, and there's just a damn good community that cares about these things. The other thing is, when you think about the growth model there, where is Dish going? They're becoming an ISP. You guys know about T-Mobile, you know about Sprint, you know about Verizon. These are cell phone companies, right? Well, Dish is a telco company, and they're moving into the
대충 단어들 통밥으로 이해하고 있는데 제가 통역할 그런 능력은 안 되네요. 단어들만 조금씩 그냥 찝어먹고 있어요.
Well, how do you build a network like that? You build it differently. You build it with new technology. You build it with new standards. And maybe you can build it with a little bit of blockchain in it. How about they be the first ISP to figure that one out? And that's the magic and beauty of the technology that we are building here today. It's built to last, and it's built to transform things. Your life as individuals, the lives of Fortune 250 companies, the lives of governments themselves. Takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of heroism. It takes a lot of unique advancements and developments and challenges that exist. But we're never dissuaded by that because we were born of resilience. First, as an industry that was always mocked. Second, as an ecosystem that never seems to get a fair shake in the media and never seems to get a fair consideration. And third, as people. We're here to stay. Cardano's here to stay. Voltaire and Basho are just beginnings to a new
로드맵에서 바쇼랑 볼테어가 이제 바로 시작됐다. 지금 로드맵 3단계까지 갔거든요.
That's a dragon we got to slay. But we're going to do that together. In the next 10, 20 years, we're probably through this movement going to invent entirely new ways of voting and governing. We have to contend with difficult questions like confidentiality and privacy.
3,000원 돌파, 3,000원 돌파.
Under what circumstances should be de-anonymized? These are super difficult questions because there's the rights of the individual, the rights of the society.
3,000원.
Over the next 10 or 20 years, we see an unholy alliance between governments and corporations to create this surveillance capitalism. You see it every day with Facebook and Google and social credit in China and other places. People working together, indirectly or directly, where you don't own your own data. You don't own the perception of you, the metadata about you. There's going to be a pushback. The pendulum will swing in the other direction. The concepts of self-sovereign identity, of you owning yourself, your data, your identity, these things. Well, we have to figure that out. There's no rules for any of these things. We're pioneers in this respect. It's an entirely new
쓰고 있네요, 여러분들. 쏘고 있네요.
Why?
이렇게.
Because the things that happen in Ethiopia matter here in Wyoming. The things that happen here in Wyoming matter in Chile. They matter in Japan. Humanity has never lived this way before. We've never lived with such a global commons. We were always so local. So, the next 10, 20 years, we have to figure out together, how are we going to do that? How are we going to build systems that are more open? One of the most magical things about the DApp space is we're also talking a lot about liberating applications in general from the control of the few. It's not fair that Microsoft and Apple and Google collectively get to
ADA는
decide
지금
what you
두
can
배가
install
문제가
on your
아니에요.
phones and computers. That's just not right.
이 카르다노 시스템의 이해를 하신 분들은 무조건 장기 투자합니다.
When you
진짜.
build a DApp and a DApp store and you build these liberating models, you start poking holes in that funnel. You start loosening that death grip and control. You start having new standards. So another big component is, how do we as a community come together and figure out how to create standards for smart contracts, standards and certification for things. So there are 4 tracks.
만 원이 뭡니까? 지금 이게 로드맵
We're going to talk a lot about that.
로드맵을 보시면 거의 한 2025년도에 로드맵이 끝날 건데 그때 가격은 상상 초월할 겁니다, 여러분. 제가 여러분들께 드리고 싶은 말씀 하나는 에이다에 투자하지 마시고 스마트 컨트랙트에 투자라고 말씀드리고 싶어요. 그 스마트 컨트랙트의 1번이 에이다라는 거 알고 계시면 되시고요.
This movement, CARDANO, blockchain, is about liberating every single thing it touches. It doesn't matter if it's a telecommunications company that lives in an ossified monopolistic world with tight regulations and, well, that's just the way it works and it's worked that way for a century and deal with it, to an app developer who just wants to make a video game and is tired of being told they can't do microtransactions or something else because it violates an app store policy. They're united in the fact that systems beyond them are constraining and controlling their ability to innovate and create. The point of the tools and the technologies we build is, first, everyone is free. Everyone has equal rights, and also you are liberated to live your dreams and create the things you want to create. And hopefully we're making that point. You add up MOE and Dish, that's 13 million people just there. The next 12 to 24 months coming online.
여러분들 구독과 좋아요 좀 눌러주세요. 이렇게 해드렸는데 제가 좀 고생하니까.
About ready for explosive growth. Basha will bring new technology like Mithril. Now I fully admit that sometimes
좋아요 좀 눌러주세요. 부탁드립니다.
I fully admit that we need a better light client game. The problem is that we couldn't just copy a light client design from Bitcoin or Ethereum because all these protocols were completely new. So it required some time to figure out new cryptographic primitives and new protocols in order to enable a safe light experience. Well, we're here now with the Mithril age. And at this summit, you're going to see presentations about Mithril. And this is not some far-off concept that's coming 5-10 years from now. Mithril is coming next year. Light clients with full client security are coming next year. And the same technology that enables Mithril to have a great light client experience, which will bring these tens of millions of people into Cardano, is the same technology that will rapidly speed up the validation of full nodes. So that means everything gets better. Daedalus gets faster. Third-party wallets get faster. And it's all open source. It's all available not just for Yoroi and Flint and Daedalus and other wallets. It's available for you, the wallet builders, building your own projects, for Catalyst, for all kinds of things to think about. And this type of technology is so foundational. It can be reused in Hydra. It can be used for ZK rollups. It can be used for all kinds of things as that thread scales. Helps the scalability.
여러분 제가 하나 말씀드리고 싶은 게 있는데 지금 어차피 영어니까 잘 이해 못 하시잖아요. 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 게 하나 있는데 이 카르다노에 대해서 스마트 컨트랙트가 출발됐다라는 거는 이 블록체인에서의 핵심 기술은 스마트 컨트랙트예요, 여러분들. 예, 스마트 컨트랙트가 제일 중요합니다, 진짜로. 근데 그거를 이더리움이 첫 번째로 했고 카르다노가 두 번째로 했다라는 거.
Which is going to be a light wallet that IO has created. We're bringing to all the consumers, and it's a beautiful wallet. We haven't named it yet. We're having some fights about it, but I assure you, you're really going to like where we're going. Get the wallet, the identity, the voting, the delegation, all these things into the browser, and make it easy to install. One click. Make it magical. And by the way, put a dApp store into it. And we have a dApp store we're showing off.
이 뎁 스토어가 정말 핵심입니다. 뎁 스토어라는 거.
We have a dApp store we're showing off too. And that'll come rather quickly. And what's so magical about this dApp store is to put dApps in it.
뎁 스토어가 무엇이냐? 뎁 스토어면은 여러분들 스마트폰에 보시면은 앱 스토어가 있죠. 앱 스토어.
It's permissionless. Yet, if you have this idea of certified software, what that means is, while anybody can use it, what you can do is allow standards and community. 뎁
스토어가 무엇이냐면은 일반 우리 애플 아이폰이나 안드로이드에 보면은 애플 같은 경우는 앱 스토어가 있고 안드로이드 같은 경우는 플레이 스토어가 있죠. 이제 블록체인계에 뎁 스토어가 나온다 이거예요, 지금 카르다노에서. 이더리움은 그걸 못했지만 카르다노가 뎁 스토어를 브라우저에서도 볼 수 있게끔 만들고 이제 뎁 스토어의 이제 시장이 활성화된다라는 거예요. 뎁 스토어의 시장이. 이거는 정말 혁신적인 겁니다, 여러분. 여러분들 에이다에 투자하지 마시고 정말로 이 스마트 컨트랙트에 대해서 조금이라도 공부하시면은 다른 건 눈에 안 보이실 거예요, 진짜로.
We're showing people how to be their own bank. We're showing people how to be self-determined. We're also teaching people to interact with people they've never met before. That is so powerful if you think about it. Look at the diversity of faces. Look at the diversity of this movement. There are people right now watching this in Vietnam, right now watching this in Rwanda and Cape Town, right now watching this in Brazil, right now watching this in Canada, all across the world, over 100 countries. These are the people that are connected to you now. You can learn from them. You can learn from each other. Every single time we bring people into this infrastructure, little by little, it teaches them to listen more, to realize the world is much more nuanced, and it gives them their power back. So, a lot of announcements, a lot of things. 4 tracks: adoption, impact, utility, governance. Each and every one of them, dozens of presentations, hundreds of people from around the planet with incredible ideas. Amazing scientific thought, amazing thought on the engineering side, ways of building things, an incredible community, lots of impact that's happening. But what unifies all of it is you, and what unifies all of it is the fact that we have dreamed together and actually accomplished.
카르다노 발행량 무제한 아닙니다. 450억 개예요.
Watch this ecosystem grow and make myself so damn irrelevant. There is nothing I can say anymore or do anymore.
그리고 카르다노는 소각할 마음 전혀 없습니다. 카르다노 재단도 그렇고 이머그저도 그렇고 IOH도 절대 소각 안 하는 코인입니다.
Exactly what was intended. I'm still here. I'll still be here for a long time. But I'm now sitting on the other side of the table if you think about it. The big announcements that come in the following years, the big things that come.
채팅창에 이제 뻘소리 하시는 분들 바로 차단 들어갈게요.
Kind of like when you look at the iPhone. Apple says, look at this amazing device and it's a platform for creativity. How do we think about the iPhone? Do we think about it as
200억 개가 넘게 지금 팔렸는데 무슨 소리 하고 계신 거예요? 450억 개가 어떻게 무제한이 될 수가 있어요?
And each and every one of those experiences were built not by Apple, but by the community. That's where the Instagrams came from. That's where the Facebooks come from. All these things, these mobile experiences that you use every single day. Some people more than 8 hours a day when they look at usability scores. They come from other people who have never met Steve Jobs, who have never partnered with Apple, know very little about them, probably never even been.
소각을 제가 그 몰라서 말하는 게 아니에요. 소각을 하면 당연히 희소성이 있지만 왜 소각을 안 하겠어요? 이유가 있으니까 소각을 안 하겠죠. 하나는 알고 둘은 모르시네.
So now we have great foundations for stable coins, tons of partnerships to announce, tons of people to come, I fade away because an army of people stand in front of me. And eventually you'll do far more than anything I ever accomplished, IO ever accomplished. And that's the point of changing the world. Create an engine to allow people to change it for themselves. We did that in our own way. You named the lobster, not me.
에이다는 소각하는 코인이 아니라니까요, 여러분들. 소각하면은 희소성이 높아 보이죠. 정말 잘못 알고 있는 상식입니다. 에이다는 절대 소각 안 해요. 이 찰스 호스키스 지 입으로도 말했어요.
And you made me believe that the 21st century is going to be better than the 20th century. In closing, never be cynical. Never believe that you can't. All you have to do to change the world, and we demonstrated that here with this movement, is just decide that you want to.
발행량이 450억 개고 이미 250억 개 이상이 지금 유통되고 있습니다.
Thank you so much.
자, 찰스 호스키스는 지금 스피치가 끝났습니다. 네, 다음 어떻게 진행될지 한번 지켜보시죠. 제가 통역을 해드리고 싶어도 저도 영어에 한계가 있어서 네.
Price dump incoming. It is a huge possibility that the price is about to dump after that. But there are
지금 이어서 아마 다른 영상이 소개가 될 것 같아요. 조금만 기다려 보세요.
We will, while we have a couple minutes here, let's go ahead and, oh gosh.
소개 영상이 지금 나오네요, 여러분들.
I don't know what the next step is here. Let me turn this down. It's probably super loud and obnoxious. Actually, can I turn it down on my sound settings? Why is that so damn loud? 1 second. Also, I'm getting like a double echo, which is amazing.
아침 6시까지 합니다. 길입니다, 오늘은.
Let's do this. For now, I'm gonna turn it down because I don't know what's going on in the background. There is more because we have. Let's see what's up next.
자, 여기 지금 보시면은 오늘 표예요, 이게. 어떤 식으로 하는지.
So, oh, it's super loud on my end for some reason. Let's go ahead and we'll give everyone one more chance. Let me get the Twitter link one more time. Go ahead and hit that retweet button so then that way we are. Oh, here, can I pin this? This will appear at the top of your profile. Yeah.
지금 저도 아까 저 버츄얼 서밋 저기 메타버스에 들어갔었는데 이게 렉이 너무 심해서 지금 다른 유튜버로 지금 들어왔거든요. 저도 여기 아까 메타버스에 들어갔는데 사람들이 너무 많아서 계속 멈추더라고요. 그래서 포기했어요, 접속하는 거.
Go ahead and hit that Twitter button. Go ahead and you can probably hear my phone going off. Go ahead and retweet it. And then at 11:45 I will hit. I'll go ahead and give away 25 ADA. Whoever gets picked, I will try to find you on YouTube and reach out. Hopefully, actually, I'm sorry. I'll hit you up on Twitter DMs, and we'll figure out how to get the wallet. Please make sure you have a wallet.
이건 게임이 아니라 그 버추얼 서밋이라고 카르다노가 저기 요번에 서밋하면서 메타버스로 해서 만든 거예요. 웹브라우저에서 접속할 수 있게끔 설정해놨습니다. 지금 잠깐 여러분들 담배 타임 한번 가지시고 지금 여기 쉬는 시간인 것 같거든요. 조금만 담배 한 대 태우시고 오시죠.
This is audio, but
지금은 홍보 영상이에요. 홍보 영상. 예.
My Chrome's at 7. That's how loud it is. My Chrome is at.
Everybody, my name is Jerry Frankenstein.
Okay.
I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Input Output. I'm here today with Chris Ergen, Head of Innovation at Dish, Charles Hoskinson, CEO of Input Output, and Stephen Stokels, Head of Boost. I'll be moderating the panel today. We are here to reveal some exciting news. Chris, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm excited to announce that Dish and Input Output are entering into a strategic collaboration to build blockchain services to make blockchain a core part of our network and consumer strategy.
제가 소리 더 크게 해주고 싶어도 안 돼요. 지금 이 최대입니다 이게.
Broadly speaking, where is the point of connection between the blockchain world and the telecom space? Charles, why don't you kick us off with that discussion?
Yeah, so the telco world is a really interesting world. It's about the movement of people, value, data across space and time. And it's really been the key driver of the internet, the key driver of many of the things that we take for granted. And it's gone through many iterations and revolutions, from the old telegraph days to the phone line days to actually starting to transmit actual computing data. And now we're in a situation where we have this desire to have a global network. We have this desire to be one global community and be very consumer focused, where a consumer can seamlessly move from one place to another place and have predictable cost and quality of service for their networking. So they can get their apps and their data where they want it, when they want it, how they want it. The problem is that when you actually look at the underlying business structure of the telecommunications space, it's very ossified, it's very 20th century in its thinking, it's very proprietary, it's very siloed and walled. And that's no good for anybody. It actually reduces the amount of profit businesses can make, and ultimately it hurts the consumer. The point of the blockchain space, just like we're doing for money and just like we're doing for property rights and voting and other things, is to say, can we apply those same techniques and concepts with a tier one carrier to revolutionize connectivity? And it's so exciting to be working with Dish because they're kind of the rebels of the telco space. You know, back from the beginning in the 80s, you know, from their business model, they've gone through many iterations and innovations, and every step of the way, they were always leading and transforming the entire industry that they were in. And now when we look at telco, we think that there's a lot of intersections between the use of identity, the movement of data, capacity exchange, and other things that can be done and explored. And it can be done at a scale of millions to tens of millions of users, and eventually at a global scale. So this is a super exciting relationship and partnership, and it's one that we can't wait to see how it goes. It's very challenging from a protocol viewpoint, an engineering viewpoint. We have to do a lot of science, a lot of innovation, a lot of engineering to be able to make blockchain protocols fit for purpose for the carrier space. And it's also really exciting from a customer experience, because telcos have scale in the tens of millions. So these types of deals don't just bring, you know, something to a back end at a server somewhere that nobody sees. If you get them right, you can fundamentally transform the entire model and innovate the telco to a point where it's front and center in a person's digital life, their economic life, their consumption life, their media life, and ultimately make it a better, fairer, more transparent and cost-effective experience for everybody.
Thank you, Charles. Stephen, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'll hammer home the point that Charles just made about sort of the consumer. And if you look at telcos, Boost, already millions of customers, eventually tens of millions of customers, there's scale there. And the ability to actually take blockchain-based technologies and actually innovate, provide new services, whether it be loyalty programs, whether it be actually an expanded ecosystem, and really have a telco and an opportunity to kind of take back some of the value that they've given away to app stores, that they've given away to sort of software providers, and really bring that back to the network piece as well, is a huge opportunity, from network all the way to consumer. So we're pretty excited about the types of things we're going to be rolling out very shortly on the consumer side, all the way down to the network side.
Chris, you want to bring it home?
Well, sure. I mean, I think I look at it a little bit more fundamentally, which is that blockchains are useless without connectivity. And so having that as a fundamental part of what we are building to bring the network connectivity that we're putting into the market, as well as the blockchain-based protocols that the Cardano family brings to us, these are going to be two individually powerful technologies that together will be something I think a lot more exponentially bigger.
Yeah, from my standpoint, from a commercial perspective, I find Metcalfe's law comes into play here. So we've got a big network, which is the telecom network, we've got the blockchain network, and as we know, the value of a network is the square of the users of the connections. So it just makes sense that networks work together. That's kind of from my perspective. And we see it in the market, that we see this push towards networks working together. Interoperability is a big thing in our industry, and I think it's only going to grow from here.
Yeah, and one of the core goals of blockchain is about empowering the edges. And it's kind of funny to think of a Fortune 250 company as being on the edges, but in many cases, the way the legacy economy is working, that happens. Whether you're Dish or a small business, in some cases you're at the mercy of the legacy banking system. You're at the mercy of a lot of older regulations and older legacy business models and monopolies and other things that you just have to accept as a fact of life. And this becomes an enormous cost center, and ultimately deteriorates the quality of the product and reduces the overall profitability of the enterprise. So the same types of things we're trying to do to transform the life of someone in Senegal or Ethiopia or Tanzania, Zanzibar, at the very individual level, the farmer, the small business owner, the university graduate, we actually try to do to transform the institution, the business. And we're really excited about how can blockchain technology be used for a client like Dish to actually allow them to take back some of their autonomy and power about the relationship with their customer, how payments work, how identity works, and ultimately how they want to do business and compete in the 21st century. Because they're a business, they have the right to do that, and it shouldn't be taken from them because of artifacts of legacy systems or other problems. And ultimately we feel that if this is successful, it'll become the default business model for the telecommunications space, which will continue that reputation legacy Dish has had of always being one of the first movers and the disruptors in this space. So we're really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I think there was one point that surprised me when we started working with Dish and Boost. Input-output is really focusing on the emerging world because people are underserved there. But when we started working with Dish and Boost, we realized that there's a large population within the US that's also underserviced, and blockchain can actually fill that gap in the first world as well as the developing world. That was another discovery that I made working with Dish. So how did the collaboration between the Dish family come about, and what is the ultimate aim of the partnership? I know this started between Charles and Chris through a mutual connection. Why don't you kick us off on this topic?
Well, we were one of the first public companies in the world to start accepting cryptocurrency as payments. So in 2014, I think it was, is when we sort of entered the fringes of the blockchain space. And I've been investigating how we can leverage this technology to help improve our business and help the experience for our customers for some time. And thanks to a mutual friend who introduced Charles and I, we met earlier this year. And, I think I was immediately impressed with his way of thinking and the way he sees blockchain interacting in the world. And I thought that it was just a great opportunity for us to engage with somebody that was competent and had some really big vision for what we could do together. And so it started to really snowball from there. And so here we are 9 months later.
Yeah, it's been an amazing relationship. Usually when you think about Fortune 500, Fortune 250, Fortune 100, if you get these larger and larger corporations, there's typically all this enormous bureaucracy that exists in these companies. You kind of start at the front door and you slowly but surely work your way through. To be able to cut all that bureaucracy out and talk to the inner circle of the company about, well, where do you want to go in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Where do you think your industry is going to go? And then say, okay, well, what do we have as a company in our portfolio that we can give to you as a company to use to get you where you need to go? Was just an incredible conversation. I think we probably have had 2-3 calls every week for 9 months. And there's been enormous amounts of work that's gone into every a piece of the relationship. But what we've been constantly impressed with is the level of competence, skill, and passion that the Dish and the Boost team has demonstrated throughout all of this. We've never really encountered bureaucracy. And if it is, Chris has done a phenomenal job of hiding it from us. I'm sure he's had to do that. And that's been a great honor. And the other thing is that we had the freedom to innovate in this deal. So we've invented entirely new things like proof of bandwidth, and we've thought about identity very differently as a consequence. And it's forced us as a company to actually really put the consumer front and center. We're so obsessed with writing scientific papers and all this formal methods code and these things. Sometimes you can forget that there's actual human beings at the other side of it. And what I love about working with Chris and Steve is that they always remind us of that. Like, what's the product? What's the vision? What's the consumer experience? How is this going to benefit the consumer, and so forth? And also, how do we get this to market quickly? Not 5 years, not 10 years, but how can we iterate and get it in now, and where can that happen? So that's been very refreshing, that a much larger company than us has been moving faster than us in certain respects and kind of kicking us to make sure that we get things done. On the other hand, what we bring to the table in the relationship has always been that rigor. And when we look at the track record of our industry, it has a track record of being very fast moving, tremendously innovative, and not caring so much about the hacks, the mistakes, or these other things. And that might work when you're a small business in Silicon Valley trying to find a business model. That can't work when you're a business with tens of millions of relationships, a 40-year history, and trust and regulation. So you need to know it works right the first time. And that's one of our expertise and specialty as a company, and something that's unique to our organization that we bring to the table is this idea of the use of formal methods and peer review, and being able to apply that to get a much higher level of assurance that the software is right and it's secure. On average, when compared to where the industry's at, I think ultimately that collaboration is going to be both innovative and also safe and suitable for the customers and regulators in this industry. And that's what makes it one of the most unique collaborations. We're moving at Silicon Valley startup speeds. We're, real time having 2-3 calls a week. We're almost as if we're a small company in that respect, but yet the products, the services, the infrastructure is being built in a very safe way. And I don't think anyone's ever done a collaboration like this before of this nature. And it's been real fun, real hard, but real fun.
Stephen? Yeah, and it's not just the technology that's been impressive about Charles and team, yourself included. It's the focus on the consumer. When we kind of came in and took over Boost a year ago, it was really looking at the telecom space from a different perspective. Right now, if you look at the consumer wireless customer, they're bombarded with, I've got the fastest network and I'm $5 cheaper. And that's the messaging. Charles and team kind of share the same sort of view as us. We kind of look at it and how can we really deliver a deeper value to the consumer? How can we connect the consumer across a broader set of services in a more lubricated way? How can we bring new digital services to the consumer? How can we actually give an underserved, underbanked population access to banking services, cryptocurrency? Bitcoin is the #2 most searched term on Google right now, yet if you look at the actual data, there's still under 15% that actually have ever even owned a Bitcoin, let alone the rest of the crypto infrastructure. So when you look at it from a consumer perspective, that's what makes, I think, IOG, the team, Charles, Jerry, very, very sort of unique in that they not only understand the technology and how to scale and how to do it in a way that's very sort of startup-centric and rapid, but also the consumer and they have a very strong consumer focus, as do we, and a consumer focus from really providing value, real, true, intrinsic value to the consumer. And at the end of the day, if you do that, you're going to win from a consumer business like Boost. And so that shared sort of ideology and passion is what I'm most excited about.
I also feel that there's almost a natural connection in the sense that the way people most interact with the blockchain space is through their mobile phone. So I almost feel that the two industries are gravitating towards each other. We've seen this in Africa with mobile com already. I almost feel that the two industries are gravitating towards each other. And we've seen this in Africa with so I see more and more of this happening in the industry. With Dish, this is expanding.
And it's going to be fun to explore emerging markets.
So I see more and more of this happening
here. There's always ways to syndicate and franchise the business model. And that's the other cool part of this relationship. There's always ways to syndicate and franchise the business model. And that's the other cool part of this relationship is what we've built is this nice corpus where experiments can rapidly be done every 3 to 6 months. New business verticals can be pursued, new markets can be pursued. And it basically Dish and Boost are in the driver's seat in that respect. And they get to decide, hey, well, what do we want to do this quarter? What do we want to play with
제가
this
지금
quarter?
사운드
And
잠깐
every time you
겹쳤어요,
do it,
여러분들.
the cost of experimentation goes down and you preserve all the ground that you've gained. And you also, in many cases, will gain customers from other less adventurous and less innovative telcos. So overall, the entire subscription base grows. So that's the other part of the deal that always gets me excited is that if it was just about making something 5% better or 10% better or shaving off 10% of a cost, it's a very boring job. What we're talking about here is the capacity to reinvent what it means to be a telco company in a 10-year period or a 15-year period. And this collaboration is perfectly well suited to ensure that those tools are accessible at the right place, the right time, at the right cost, and the right scale for everybody.
Let's talk about identity, or decentralized identity to be more precise. So this is a crucial foundational component for our emerging partnership. Our product's called Untitled Prism. How does Untitled Prism help your customers at Dish and at Boost? Steve, why don't we start with you on this one?
Absolutely. So it's really on two major facets. Obviously, there's a or maybe not that obvious, but there's a huge sort of data protection and privacy advantage to having a sort of decentralized identity, security, anti-fraud, etc. So from a technical perspective alone, there's huge value. But above and beyond that, when we talk about sort of deeper consumer value, it provides the ability to really ramp and scale a third-party ecosystem where consumers can participate in new services seamlessly without having to go through a lot of rigor. And that allows consumers, like I said from the get-go, who are potentially cut off from certain services, whether it be banking, whether it be sort of anything, gambling, commerce, you name it. It allows for a very sort of lubricated, transparent kind of entry into new offerings, as well as just making the third-party ecosystem more robust and more sort of scalable. So we're excited about that from multiple facets, and I think we'll start to prove out
얘는 왜 풀스크린을 안 하는 거야?
ID very quickly here. All right, Charles.
Yeah, it's identity is such a fundamentally human thing, and it's amazing that we haven't, as a collective global society, figured out this problem yet. We have passports, we have driver's licenses, we have paper identity, we have some notions of digital identity, but right now digital identity is a very fragmented affair. Your digital identity you use to register to vote is distinctly different than how you manage your medical records, from how you manage your personally identifiable information with regulated financial institutions. And even the people you would think would get it right about safety, security, privacy have gotten it horrifically wrong. I think one of the biggest moments in US history was the Opm Hack, the Office of Personnel Management. There you have a database that contains the names and information of all the people who applied for and got security clearances. So our spies, our generals, our military, deeply personal information about them, their relationships, other things, held by a very secret government agency. It gets hacked and 22 million files have been lost since the 1970s. If that kind of agency has difficulty keeping data secure, it's unrealistic to assume that Fortune 500 small businesses, individuals are going to be able to do that in the old paradigm. So you need to change the paradigm a little bit and push power to the edges and put the consumer front and center with their digital life and their access control, their personally identifiable information. And to Stephen's point, the ability to create liquidity where you can easily move between these different fragmented systems is incredibly important. Because that liquidity ultimately is the difference between you having $10 of revenue and $1 million of revenue. It's the difference between a low value customer that's worth 50 cents lifetime value and $2,000 lifetime value. The more that they do in your ecosystem, the more they can do in the ecosystem, the easier it is for them to connect to services, the easier it is for third parties to come in and connect their services to your services. That is really where we need to be at in 2021 and beyond for businesses to be competitive. And when you talk about identity and data, it seems to be stuck in a very 1980s, 1990s mainframe paper world. And very rapidly, the next 3 to 5 years, that's going to fundamentally change. You see it with Facebook and the metaverse. You see it with some of the products Google is building. You see it with some of the products that Microsoft is building. And the telco space can't be left behind because, as Chris has said, they're really layer zero.
Eager Bev is going to be the first winner of 25 Cardano.
All
I'll
of
reach
this
out to
stuff
you right
runs. And if they don't do it, it's going to be a lot harder to do it layer 1 and layer 2 and higher up layers. If they do it at the backbone layer, then that becomes the skeleton key that we can use to connect all of these services, and we'll get better safety, better security, better privacy, and ultimately more velocity of commercial transactions. And that's where we want to be at.
Chris?
Yeah, I think Charles said it pretty well there, but in the United States, our Social Security cards are an actual piece of paper. And to think that your identity and your ability to prove your identity can be ruined by spilling a cup of coffee onto a document is very old.
여러분은 좋아요, 구독 좀 부탁드리겠습니다. 한 번만 눌러주세요. 카르다노에 관심 있으신 분들 좋아요랑 구독 버튼 한번 누르세요. 많이 활동하겠습니다, 여러분들.
Able to be ruined by an accident.
And the other thing is that you think about a modern company, we think about identity in terms of people, but there's also sensors, there's IoT devices, there's drones. When we looked at 2025,
그리고 협업 발표는 아마 2시 정도에 할 것 같아요. 2, 3시 정도에 할 것 같으니까 지금 체력 저기 되시는 분만
and being a telecommunication company, there's probably more non-human things that you guys have to identify in your stack than human things in the stack. So what's so beautiful about this collaboration is what we're trying to figure out is bedrock. So we're trying to figure out what is a universal identifier that's built with standards, like through the W3C and so forth, that's open and not vendor specific, that can be integrated into this type of infrastructure. So then not only can you build on that and get a lot of great functionality about that, but then you
정확한 시간이 1시 20분입니까? 제가 지금 그 로드맵을 저기 타임라인을 제대로 못 봤어요.
Cardano collaboration is great for Cardano, but at the end of the day, these credentials and assets can very easily also be embedded in Ethereum and Bitcoin and other ecosystems. And so that puts Dish and Boost in the driver's seat about what is best for the business, what is best for the customer, what is best for the consumer. And there are going to be many cases where it turns out that there are other experiences that are best. There was another large company that actually had to go through this renaissance, and it turned out to be one of the greatest business transformation stories of all time. It was the transformation of Microsoft. They used to have this very closed mindset of Windows first and forever. We can never work with Android and Apple. We can't work with competitors. We have to build everything internally. And then when they opened it up, they said sometimes it's okay to release an app on an Apple product before Windows. Sometimes it's okay just to be mobile first and not actually have a Windows mobile. And now they're, I think, almost a $2 trillion company. Far more profitable, far more resilient, far more loved. And that's exactly the kind of transformation we expect to see in the telecommunications space. The first people to embrace open standards, the first people to embrace maximal flexibility in the business model, agility, and to Stephen's point, the ability to create velocity in the commercial transactions, that is the stuff that creates the 10x growth and the 100x growth. And that's the stuff that transforms the telco from just a layer 0 boring infrastructure company into a company that becomes a kingmaker for entire verticals in the industry and has a more balanced relationship with their customer base, which will be ever growing.
Let me just hit one point home, because I think what Charles is talking about is extremely important, and bringing it back to the consumer. But other companies, obviously us taking the lead is good for us, but it's also good for a broad ecosystem of everybody who kind of follows. Because if you think about it, if you want access to tens of millions of customers and you're a financial
아마존은 아니라고 차쇼스키스님 트위터에 말했습니다. 그리고 여러분들 너무 크게 기대를 안 하시는 게 좋을 거예요. 기대가 크면 실망도 크기 때문에 이 파트너십이 대형 파트너십이 아니라고 얘기하시면 여러분들 좀 실망이 크실 거예요. 예. 아마존은 아니라고 분명히 말했습니다. 예.
I 100% agree. I mean, I take this one very personally. I think there's a new feature in iOS where it kind of lists all the accounts that have been hacked or have been on some kind of leak. And I looked at the list and it's almost every single one of my accounts. And we've almost accepted this as normal. And if I know personally, if a provider like Boost offers a secure ID where I can be assured that won't happen, I would switch carriers. Of course, like you said, they all provide similar performances. The price points are almost equivalent. If I could get this, I would definitely switch carriers, and I think millions of other people would do the same thing. And I think there's an education to be done, because it almost feels like we've given up this right. We didn't even know that we gave it up, and now there's a new opportunity to get it back. I think that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of SIM boosting just within the cryptocurrency industry. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been stolen just by people illegally porting cell phone numbers and getting access to people's Coinbase accounts.
내려가네.
And that's just such a fundamental thing of, how do we know our relationship with our customer? How do we make sure that that customer is actually who they say they are? That should be easy to solve in 2021. But because legacy infrastructure makes it hard, that's a problem. And it's a problem at scale across the entire industry. And to your point, there seems to be a great degree of tone deafness to that, which is because, they're ossified monopolies. And how you win is you disrupt that. And you just kind of bring something revolutionary new. And if you get it right, everybody else follows. And then it makes the entire industry better for everyone.
Look, the core principle
비트코인이 지금 쏟고 있어요.
It's the customer really owning their own identity here. And so at the very fundamental basic here, you got a customer who owns his own identity versus a company owning the customer's identity. So I think just even from that perspective, it's a completely different way of sort of approaching identity than sort of probably 150 different companies right now own my identity.
여러분 비트코인 30분봉 에이다 30분봉 보시면은 이게 커플링이 된다라고 합니다. 이 비트가 쏟으면은 에이다도 같이 쏟기 때문에 좀 확인 좀 해주세요.
For Boost, this is something that will help Boost customers. Can you give us some inputs about how that's
비트코인이
gonna help
지금
the
쏟아서 어쩔 수
customer
없어요
in general?
지금.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at loyalty programs, probably the airline industry is your biggest example of success. And I think you guys have kind of shared some data points. American Airlines, is their loyalty programs worth $30 billion of consumer value, right, or of corporate value. But more broadly, you look at the loyalty programs, there's a ton of consumer value that's come out of these. And again, the airlines, third-party ecosystem, I can use those points for flights, obviously, but I can use them for hotels, I can use them for car rentals, I can use them outside of the travel space, I can use them to redeem cash. So they've built out very robust third-party ecosystems. Now, Boost is going to be the first telco to really embrace not only a loyalty program, but a blockchain-based loyalty program. And the reason that the blockchain piece is important here is because we're going to be able to catch up to what the airlines have built over decades in a matter of months, maybe a year, right? We'll have an ecosystem because blockchain gives us the ability to have third parties engage in the ecosystem very quickly, as we've talked about already, allows transferability. So yes, obviously a Boost customer will earn loyalty points by doing various actions, paying their bills, signing up, inviting a friend, et cetera, et cetera. But the ability to redeem those points for not just money off your bill or a new phone, but into cash, into Bitcoin, into Cardano, into a hotel, into a flight, into all kinds of third-party services, into financial services. That ability, enabled by blockchain, will sort of accelerate a loyalty program decades from what it might take if we were just trying to do things and recreate the airline model. So pretty excited about not just the loyalty program we're doing it, but how we're doing it in collaboration with you guys here.
Yeah, and what's so cool about this type of a program is it's very dynamic. A lot of loyalty programs are static. You're told what you get, and then you operate within the rules of that system, and that's that. The power of blockchain is openness and basically programmability. So you're in a situation where third parties can come in and find new ways and concepts to be able to integrate and use these types of things where they have identity plus loyalty.
지금 동시 통역 해봤자 의미 있는 내용이 없어요.
And it's all seamless. So it could end up being the #1 consumer of this system 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now. A company we've never met, we know nothing about, and didn't ask permission. They just built in an open store or something like that. That was kind of the magic of Google Play, the magic of the iOS store, was that all these incredible developers, entrepreneurs, and other businesses came, and they had a platform to build on, and then suddenly you could use your flash on your phone as a flashlight. You know, it's just incredible to see the level of innovation that came. And now we're doing that with incentives engineering. We're doing that with loyalty points, and the whole ecosystem can develop. And that ecosystem, as Stephen said, is interoperable with real financial rails. So it's easy to move between different instruments of value and represent different instruments of value, whether that be bandwidth or priority service or cash or whatever it might be. The other thing is that it creates really interesting user-to-user interactions. We do a lot of business in Africa, and one of the great success stories of the 2000s of Africa was the emergence of M-Pesa, where cell phone minutes became currency, which was a really remarkable concept. And so this idea that users now have instruments they can work with for remittances or for whatever they happen to have in their financial life is a really cool concept. And it's going to be really fun to see what the customers come up with. And then, as he said, very rapidly, you can add functionality and features on a quarterly basis to embrace that change so that you can always stay on the bleeding edge of the business model.
Yeah, let me add real quick to that point. I mean, we expect an ecosystem that's far more expansive than the airline industry within a matter of years, or even quicker, perhaps. And again, it's enabled there. And look, at the end of the day, if you think about it, you want access to the Boost customer base and the tens of millions of subscribers, you can do that on your own. You can have access and you can be remunerated by these loyalty points for your access. And so it's pretty exciting from that perspective. And from a Boost customer perspective, look, stay with Boost long enough, we might buy your next house, buy your next car. And it opens up all kinds of value to the consumer as they accumulate these loyalty points that actually have value well beyond the Boost ecosystem as it exists today.
The thing that excites me the most about it is the innovation that we don't know is going to happen. It's like crowdsourcing innovation. You're creating a platform and people with the loyalty points or maybe some other token will power a host of applications that we can't even imagine today. And I think, Chris, from your perspective, I think being able to crowdsource your innovation from your customers, that will actually be more loyal customers, so you get the engagement, the retention, the acquisition, but then you opened up innovation to the world based on this type of program. So I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about that.
Makes my job a lot easier, for one thing. But clearly, networks are much more powerful the bigger they are. And so to be able to go directly to the community that is our customer, the people that we're trying to innovate on behalf of, and get their input is incredibly powerful. And I'm hoping that this turns into something that's much, much bigger than just us.
Charles, why don't you bring this home for all of us?
Well, you know, it's a great beginning, and what's really cool is there's collectively a lot of brain power and a lot of goodwill and a lot of truly amazing ideas that are on the table. But for this collaboration to be successful, we got to execute, we got to move forward, and we always have to keep our eye on the prize about the experiences that are needed and the level of participation that's needed. So what's so cool about it is that just in 9 months, we've gone from, hi, nice to meet you, Chris, to this massive fundamental transformation of a Fortune 250 company. And I'm very optimistic that in the coming months to years, we're going to see that collaboration be shared with the millions of Boost customers and eventually the broader ecosystem, the entire cryptocurrency and blockchain space and the entire telecommunications space. This is the kind of deal that I can imagine in a decade horizon involves hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. I'm deeply passionate about it because to do the things we'd like to do as a company, we have to bank the unbanked and connect the unconnected. And that's a tremendous challenge. And to work with a tier 1 telecommunications company, it not only teaches us how to make our products more competitive and make Cardano a better ecosystem, but it also ultimately teaches us how to bring this type of connectivity and these ideas to continents like Africa, to places like Cuba, places like South America, to places like Southeast Asia, where there are literally billions of people who are underbanked or unbanked and really need a leg up. So this is a very passionate project for me. And it's something that I'm probably going to spend a huge chunk of my time, and I know Chris has spent probably the majority of his time this year on it. It's been exhausting, but we're always invigorated and recharged by the fact that we actually have a chance to make a real difference in people's lives. And we have a chance to make a very big difference in the industry. And to work with a partner like Dish that's done this for 40 years, again and again and again, literally every time they came in, they were the rebel, the underdog, the disruptor that always found a way to look at and do things differently, whether it be satellite equipment out of the back of a truck to basically the things they've done with HughesNet and EchoStar and these other great product lines is really an honor. And it's the privilege of my career to learn from you guys and work with you guys.
And likewise for us, I mean, the community that you guys have built is just getting started. I want to congratulate the Cardano community for getting the Alonzo upgrade launched and deployed just
목소리 잘
few days
들리시나요?
ago. And that's going to enable the community to really take root, and we're very excited to be a part of that. So, thank you.
It's going to be fun.
I'm excited for this next one right here.
It's also been a personal pleasure of mine
Building a
to
new
work
partnership
with you guys.
ecosystem.
You know, it's part of it is always how much value can you bring, but you reach a point in your career where it's just, I want to work with people I like working with, and it's been a personal pleasure of mine to work with you guys. Thank you.
So yeah, let's go ahead and I'll do one more giveaway right now. I will eventually actually have to, let's see, where did they go, this right here. Alright,
제가 그러면 핵심만 좀
make sure we hit the
봐서
like button on the YouTube.
예.
You don't actually, your entry is not based on the like button, but hit the like button so that way people know about this one. We can also get it above like the fake streams that are probably just showing Charles rambling and then putting $100 Cardano. So go ahead and hit the like button on the YouTube. Make sure you are pushing that Twitter link. I will post the Twitter link again for you guys who are new to the stream, guys and gals. Go ahead and hit that retweet button. You don't have to say anything fancy, just hi, I stopped in the stream. Cool, Cardano, Moon, whatever you want to put. We are getting ready to go into this next announcement, which is building a new partnership ecosystem, which should start here in about a minute. I'm going to go ahead and hit the next. I can show Voltaire track, yeah. Where is that at? This one right here? Yeah, we'll switch to governance. We'll do that now, actually, while we have a chance. Governance. And we'll come over here. Oh, I just collected the friendlies. Was it sprites? Or yeah, I think it was sprites. Is that what that was? This? Yay! I think another one is about to go live. So we're going to go ahead and do the other drawing here. Give me a second. I want to make sure I don't accidentally miss something. So we'll keep that volume up.
At the Cardano Summit, we've announced a strategic collaboration.
Captions are working.
Nikki Arias-Singer is their head of blockchain partnerships.
We got full screen again.
Joins
All right.
me now. Nikki, many people will have heard.
I'm going to do a quick giveaway. We're going to do a quick pick while they're talking, okay? Quick drawing. This is for 25 Cardano.
Absolutely. The Chainlink is actually the largest decentralized Oracle network in the world. So we essentially do two things. One is we're very focused on bringing off-chain data securely on-chain, so onto any blockchain. And the second thing that we're really focused on is enabling interoperability between different blockchains as well. So we offer a whole range of smart contract services. Just to give you some examples, we're very well known for providing price feeds. So these are crypto price feeds, so the price of BTC USD as a simple example. And we do that via a decentralized method involving a whole range of data providers, a very vast node operator network, and allows that secure price to go through to users. And in fact, there's a whole range and we actually power about 70% of the entire DeFi ecosystem. So we started off with crypto price feeds, and in fact, there's a whole range of other smart contract services we provide now as well. So verifiable randomness
Monkey is
so
the second winner of 25 Cardano,
which is very useful in areas like gaming and NFTs. And another product we've recently launched called Keepers. So this provides automation and smart contract maintenance services, very popular in the DeFi space as well. So for us, it's really about providing those smart contract services to users so they can then build highly user-centric and powerful applications on top of platforms like Cardano.
So tell us a little bit more about your vision and mission as a company.
So for us, we provide decentralized Oracle networks, but starting off with things like crypto price feeds and DeFi is really just the beginning. And fundamentally for us, our vision is really wanting to make a wider impact on society with what we call the truth, truth in a cryptographic provided way. And this can really be provided via advanced smart contracts. And we really want to extend out what blockchains and smart contracts can do across a whole range of industries and across a whole range of platforms. And our broader vision, which we hope to achieve, I assume many years from now, is really to kind of focus on building an open source standard for how this type of cryptographic truth can enable blockchains and smart contracts to actually make useful applications for the world. So to bring it to life a little bit, in terms of the areas that I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned that ability to bring off-chain data securely onto any blockchain, this can happen via any type of data feed. Crypto price feeds is just the beginning. It can enable connections with payment systems and so on and so forth. But one example that might be quite useful is in the area of parametric insurance. So we work with a number of interesting fintech startups that are trying to enable parametric insurance in sub-Saharan Africa. And one of the key data inputs that's required for those parametric insurance contracts is highly secure, verifiable, and robust weather data for those to activate those particular parametric insurance contracts. So that's just one example, but there's a whole range of other really interesting data that we hope to bring to platforms like Cardano, so you can build, your users can build really interesting applications on top of that data. The second key area as well is enabling cross-chain interoperability. And this is really a framework for enabling bridges between different chains. And so this is something that we hope to collaborate with the Cardano ecosystem as well. And really what it's about is enabling a multi-chain world.
So we're announcing our strategic collaboration, obviously, at the summit this weekend. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit more about why you want to get involved with Cardano's ecosystem.
We have a tremendous amount of respect for the Cardano ecosystem. I think there's a tremendous amount of respect, obviously, for the technical team behind Cardano, IOG, and so on, but also for the collaborative nature of the community as well. So I think there's a tremendous amount of respect between the Chainlink and Cardano ecosystems. Secondly, obviously, a lot of this comes down to timing. Cardano obviously has had a extended period where we've had different drops of upgrades over time. And I think obviously the most recent is Alonzo, really about enabling smart contracts. So for us, this is really about the right time to engage with the Cardano ecosystem and really a coming together of what is a very highly technically able and powerful platform like Cardano, and also bringing together Chainlink, which is really built to enable smart contracts via that off-chain data in particular.
And what do you hope you expect the community to see as a result of this collaboration?
Well, I think it's important to understand as we embark on this collaboration as well that the idea of integrating Cardano and Chainlink is a non-trivial matter. So,
지금 체인링크랑
I always like to say
카르다노에
that when
대해서
we
이야기를 하고 있는데요.
interact and when we complete an integration with a particular chain, it's a very high hurdle to meet. We have very high security, reliability, and scalability standards for every integration that we do. And so just as a mental model
마이 테스트 잘
for
들리세요?
folks in the Cardano ecosystem to imagine what we're trying to build here in terms of an integration is something that will enable, for example, hundreds of billions of dollars of TVL to be secured on the Cardano ecosystem, particularly in the DeFi space. So I think that's firstly an important point to kind of note. I think the second point that's really quite important as well in terms of our collaboration is that Cardano has a whole range of unique features that have been built, obviously for very specific reasons, but that obviously are key aspects that we need to kind of work through at a technical level. But we feel really confident that with a strong collaboration between the IOG technical team as well as the Chainlink Labs technical team, that we're actually very well placed to surmount some of those challenges and some of those hurdles and actually build a very, very robust and highly reliable and highly scalable integration between Cardano and Chainlink. And so what users can expect when this is ready, and we'll obviously provide updates as things progress, but really a two-stage process. The first is a testnet that will be made open to users to particularly deploy in a safe testnet environment some of those crypto price feeds, so the users can start to figure out how those add value to the dApps that they're building. And secondly, once mainnet integration launched, what is very likely that users will get access to is a whole range of crypto price feeds, then followed by a whole range of additional other services like more esoteric data feeds, whether it's weather data, whether it's
지금 여러분들이 원하는 파트너십에 대해서는 아직 한 번도 언급이 없어요. 조금만 기다려 주세요.
other services that I mentioned, verifiable randomness, keepers, and perhaps other services that are demanded by users in the Cardano ecosystem. But those will continue to be added to and as part of the collaboration.
Nicky, exciting times ahead. Thanks very much for joining us at the Cardano Summit.
Thank you, Tim.
Awesome. That didn't really get a ton of information there, but information nonetheless. And let's go check the schedule here. Where are we at next? We're gonna stay in the Voltaire. We're gonna stay in governance. Just a heads up. Anyone in the United States, if you don't have a really good exchange on your phone, or if you want to just
아직까지 지금 뉴스에는 파트너십이 누구라고 이렇게 언급된 적이 없고요. 뉴스에서도 지금 나와 있지도 않은 상황인데. 예.
It's just a... Give me a second. Okay. Let me send that.
여러분들 뭐 내용이 그렇게 지금 중요한 내용은 없어요. 좀 기다려 보시죠.
While we hang out until they bring up the Voltaire. We have two more winners coming up. Two more winners for $25 ADA each, almost at $25. Is there a way to search? I don't think there's a way to search. Oh wait, here it is. Ergo shows 5 p.m. on day 1, so we have a little while for Ergo. Let's see. Oh, I'm still... You can only send 200? It's 200 texts? Hold on. That is my Voyager link. I use Voyager to buy and sell crypto, mainly to HODL. So if anyone is in the United States, this is United States only, feel free to go and sign up. You trade $100, you get $25 free Bitcoin. Think about that. $25 is what, 10 ADA right now, basically.
통역방이
So
있는지는
make sure
모르겠는데
want some
지금은
free
그다지
money
영양가 있는 대화를
and
하고
you're
있지
in the
않아요.
United States and in the United States. Is Voyager safe? I've had no issues with Voyager. I've moved money all around, so I've had no issues. I know some users have had issues. A lot of the issues stem from how you send the money out of Voyager. You got to pay very close attention.
Hi everybody, my name is Dor Garbash. I'm the head of product for Voltaire.
This is Voltaire,
and today
so we're going to hang out
we're going
and
to talk
listen to
about
Voltaire, okay?
the path to decentralized governance. So, what is the question that Voltaire is asking? How can the Cardano community govern Cardano in a fair and impactful way? And for this, the decentralized governance body has two main functionalities. One, the ability to modify the protocol. The second one is allocating treasury funds, currently at around $1.5 billion worth of ADA. And, you know, as we tackle these really hard problems, it's good to go back to the source, right? To the man, Voltaire himself, with his quote, doubt is an uncomfortable
이게 뭐냐면
condition,
지금 우리
but
카르다노
certainty
로드맵 중에
is a
볼테르라고 있어요. 볼테어라고
And
있는데
while
그거에
there
대해서
might be a
지금
lot of
설명하고 있는
people
거거든요.
who can feel very certain, all right, of which way we should govern, how things should be done, in what way or the other. You know, we all know, or at least any reasonable person knows, that this question of governance has been explored for thousands of years in human civilization, and we haven't quite got to a conclusive answer yet. But what we do is intending to find out what can work best for Cardano. So what are the North Poles? What is driving this whole Voltaire towards accomplishing its goals? So we have, it's all about legitimacy. Okay, if you see in this like center of the circle, it's about legitimizing decentralized governance. And in order for something to become legitimate, we're talking about three main principles. Okay, the first one is ROI, and in our case, we like to call ROI return on intention, right? So, are we fulfilling the intention of the community? So, so are we addressing challenges effectively? Okay, are we making impactful decisions? The second one is user experience. So, how does it feel to be part of Cardano governance? How understandable it is? How accessible it is? How engaging it is? So these things determine, you know, how many people participate in governance, what kind of talent are we attracting to our ecosystem. And the third one is, I call it D, it's short for decentralization, which is the question, is control distributed among many? All right, so we believe that driving these three things, the higher we drive these things, the more legitimate.
여러분 잠시만요. 가격 잠깐만 보지 마시고요. 제가 카르다노 온라인 미더 저기 회의 그 방으로 다시 들어가 보고 있거든요.
Having the right challenges, the right problems, the right proposals, which means like the right solutions to these problems that we invoked, having a functional, here I say expert layer, it's expert layer and a voter layer, so that generates the right decisions, and in the end, execution. So having the right kind of execution, the right people and the right methods for them to coordinate to excel. And this all leads, you know, not just to treasury ROI, but also to the Cardano ROI. So when we talk about challenges and the certain steps we're taking in order to maximize it. So first of all, we've just launched in Fund 6 challenge teams.
다시 3,000원으로 올라가고 있습니다, 여러분들. 2,990.
We just transferred control over challenges to the community. So the community defines and votes which challenge are we trying to resolve through the Treasury. We introduced reporting of proposals, like every 2 weeks. We get back what kind of ROI did they produce, transparent and viewable by the community. And of course, we have the Catalyst Circle itself, a group of representatives that over the past 2 months have already identified 16 problems within Catalyst. Then when we talk about the right solutions, okay, we're talking about $100 million in ADA that would incentivize proposals in 2022. We're talking about workshops like Catalyst School, or the mini proposal workshop started by TiVo, or the recurring town halls and the after town halls and the swarm sessions that help proposers hone and improve their proposal to be more effective, about introducing methods for forming teams, both in a Descale and a project called PACE, so you can see a screenshot where people can share their skills and services. We're talking about feedback. Okay, more than almost 15,000 comments have been submitted in a Descale to give proposers constructive feedback, how to improve their proposal. And also we're talking about a referral program. So $80,000 this round is given in order to incentivize people to bring talented proposers into the system. So anybody who refers new proposers is eligible for this incentive. Then we're talking about the right decisions. So in 2022, again, if we continue to grow at current rate, there will be $6 million worth of ADA and incentives. We're providing, we as in the entire community ecosystem is providing training and support groups and documentation, as well as tooling to support these layers of experts and community advisors. Such a tool is like CARDANO AIM, that basically has enabled community advisors to browse and explore proposals and make good assessments in a kind of like an easy and streamlined way. Then we're also talking about acceleration. Okay, and here I wanted you to invite you to watch another talk in this Voltaire stream by Chris Baird, talking about sparking a movement with Catalyst pioneers. We're going to make a couple of announcements about acceleration programs we're launching. Then we have UX. So in one hand, we're talking about reducing the perceived cost of participation in governance. This is why we started, now you can only need to register once to participate basically in all governance rounds. Compare that to
이 아저씨 자장가야. 왜 이렇게 졸려?
like tens, maybe even hundreds of dollars per single vote in other blockchains such as Ethereum. We're talking about delegation. Soon, everybody would be able to, people who are like maybe at least less engaged with governance can actually just delegate their vote and choose a trusted representative to vote on their behalf. And we're currently working on voting within the wallet, within Daedalus, and providing an API for any other wallet to integrate these functionalities within them. We're also talking about raising the benefit of participating in governance. So again, if during 2022, if we continue to grow at the current pace that we're growing, per 1,000 ADA, like so, if you're holding 1,000 ADA and you will participate in all our voting rounds, you will get around $4 worth of ADA in rewards. And this is
트위터에 뭐라고 떴다고요? 트위터 한번 봐볼게요.
So that means like if it's like 10,000
누구
ADA,
트위터요?
$40. If it's 100,400 ADA, etc. It's also clear that those who participate make the network stronger, improve the decision-making process. So, you know, it's kind of like an internal benefit, knowing that you're contributing and you're bringing value and you're helping to promote your values. And finally, a sense of belonging. So, and I want to talk a bit more about a sense of belonging because this is probably the most powerful motivator of them all. With town halls, swarm sessions, initiatives like Gimbal Labs or IDFest, or our many diverse Discord channels that has, you know, hundreds of people live online. You know, this is not like the absolute number. This is like whoever was online last time I checked. You get a chance for a real human connection. The number one thing that people say about their experience in Catalyst and decentralized governance is the amazing humans they meet and connect with. And finally, let's talk about decentralization. So we're currently working on decentralizing the protocol and parameter updates. So there's like an entire mechanism that's right now being developed in order to do that. And we're talking about, and by the way, you're invited to watch Kevin Hammond's presentation in the same stream that would go into it in much bigger detail. We're talking about decentralized consent, okay? So the ability for basically the system to ask for permission when we're doing big fundamental changes. For example, voting on the DCF proposal, or you know, we might want to have some sort of kind of a founding document for Cardano, or an agreed set of community values. So these are all consent decisions that will be enabled with Voltaire. Then we're talking about decentralized elections, like getting representatives from voting to the circuit.
Going to mute for just a second as they talk about decentralized elections. I'm going to step away from the computer.
지금 제가 대충 단어 통밥으로 지금 듣고 있는데
another stream currently. Feel free to hang out. Make sure you like the video, retweet the tweet. That way we can keep people in here and seeing Cardano. I will be back in probably about 20-25 minutes and we'll do another drawing, okay?
And where probably we should be going. So just to give you a bit of a bigger look on these things. So this is one level of Zoom, and Kevin will take us to the next level on his other presentation. But you know, what we have in store is a system that starts with a round of voting within Catalyst, and where people can propose and vote changes in the protocol, updates for protocol parameters, and then a committee elected by the community itself.
지금 에이다 카르다노에서 카탈리스트 보팅 시스템에 대해서 설명하고 있습니다.
Submit this proposal on chain, followed by an on-chain and public vote to basically ratify the decision, taking on the Catalyst sidechain.
조금 일반 투자자분들께서는 조금 지루하실 수도 있어요. 예. 심지어 카르다노를 공부하신 분들도 예, 그렇게 느끼실 수 있을 것 같아요.
So when we talk about consent, we're talking about a vote about the DCF proposal. We're talking about
이게 왜 번역이 힘드냐면은 일반 영어가 아니라 IT 전문 용어들이 섞여 있기 때문에 영어 통역
are a way to transfer funds from the treasury to those who are eligible for reward. So basically, the community given explicit consent for using the Catalyst system for transferring these funds.
통역하기가 정말 쉽지가 않아요.
Something like a Cardano constitution. And when we talk about decentralized elections, so we're talking about voting for this on-chain proposal submission committee, electing Catalyst members where appropriate, and electing stewards. Okay, people who are
심지어 IT를
work
공부하시는 분들도 헷갈려 하시는 용어들이 많이 있을 겁니다.
that are
그거를
accountable to
실시간으로
the
통역을
community,
한다는 게
that are paid for their
쉬운 게
work
아닙니다.
by decentralized Cardano treasury. And finally, when we're talking about sense making, this is probably the most important of all the mechanisms, because in this world of uncertainty, of let's say, from fake news and manipulation, complexity, data overflow, how do we process this information to make good decisions, to have awareness of our environment? And we've built and are continuing to build a stronger and stronger system of decentralized sense making. Okay, so it starts from
참고로 저도 전공이
the
소프트웨어
voters
개발인데
themselves, right, that express
뭔 소리인지
what they
모르겠어요.
approve of not, as a strong signal of what direction we want to take and decide on the challenges. And then we have the challenge teams that are basically responsible to make sense and address the question, are these challenges being solved, right? So they scrutinize reports, they communicate back to the community on the different challenges, and they help facilitate information transfer between proposing teams that are in the same challenge. Then we have community advisors.
나 이 세션은 빨리 좀 넘어갔으면 좋겠다. 대충 알 것 같으니까. 이렇게 디테일하게 듣고 싶지 않은데.
We had more than around 711 proposals with, I believe, around 5 unique reviews per proposal accomplished. So this is like an amazing achievement. Then we have validators. So this is something we will launch.
여러분들 제발 좀 채팅창에 협약 드립 좀 그만 치세요. 예, 제발 좀 부탁드릴게요.
Layer of people who actually validate that proposers are doing the work they're supposed to do. Okay, that their reports are true. And then we have the proposers themselves that are experimenting and trying and launching and learning and reporting back. And it all goes back into a dashboard that the community can explore. And finally, the catalyst circle, a group of elected representatives.
아무튼 제가 이 영상을 어저께 본 영상에서 가장 핵심적인 게
source problems and opportunities, and then coordinate which problems.
핵심적인 게 그 일반 웹 브라우저에서도 DF 스토어가 구동이 된다라는 거. 그래서 그 DF 스토어로 DF이 작동한다는 거.
And it just keeps on growing and growing. So in the end, as we are, facing head on with those really big problems, really big challenges.
채팅창에 제발 협약들을 그만 치세요. 이제 협약들을 치시는 분 저기 차단할 거예요.
Different greatly between iterations, disorient, overload, and inspire. And we're here for you. Our goal is to provide a safe and lively environment for you to explore the highest potential of human collaboration. Good luck.
이분 끝났네. 제가 다시 한번 말씀드리지만은 이 DF 스토어라는 게 나와요. 카르다노 기반의 DF 스토어. 이 DF 스토어가 뭐냐면 여러분 핸드폰 보시면 앱 스토어, 플레이 스토어 있죠. 그런 게 이제 일반 웹 브라우저에서 구동이 된다라는 거예요. 조금 기다려 보시죠. 예, 영상 나올 것 같으니까. 좋아요 좀 눌러주시고요, 여러분들. 지금부터 파트너십 뭐 지금 나오지도 않았는데 파트너십이 뭐 누구랑 맺었다 뭐 한다 그러는 분들 채팅창에 보이면은 그냥 잠시만 기다려주세요. 지금 영상이 멈춘 게 아니라 지금 잠깐 웨이팅 상태거든요. 잠시만요. 서버가 뻗었는지 지금 화면이 전환이 안 되네요. 제가 제 걸로 한번 로그인해 볼게요. 아, 지금 브레이크 타임이네요. 12시 40분부터 12시 50분까지 예, 브레이크 타임이니까 10분 정도. 예. 아, 이게 UTC 타임이니까 10분 정도만 지금 기다려 보시는 게 예. 지금 이렇게 보시면은 영상에 네트워킹 브레이크라고 12시 40분부터 12시 50분 이렇게 나와 있잖아요. 네, 10분간 휴식인 것 같으니까 여러분들 숨 좀 고르시고 예, 주무실 분들 주무시고 예, 좀만 기다려 주세요. 예. 제가 여러분들 이거 한번 움직여 볼까요? 이동 한번 해볼까요? 이렇게 이 웹페이지를 접속을 하면은 이 메타버스라고 해서 캐릭터가 움직여요. 이렇게 이동하면서 여기 대형 스크린이 아까 보셨던 영상, 예. 여기 네트워킹 브레이크라고 지금 브레이크 타임이에요, 여러분들. 아, 잠깐만, 이것도 보여드리자. 이거 보시면은, 이렇게 보시면 타임라인이 나와 있어요. 이게 지금 한국 시간이 맞는지 모르겠는데 (12시부터) (12시 45분까지) 메인 스테이지 그 카르다노 서밋 오프닝 키노트 이렇게 나와 있어요. 예. 네. 이 키노트 45분에서 1시 20분까지가 키노트 회의를 하고 12시 20분부터 1시 반까지. 한번 우리 이동이나 해볼까요? 이게 근데 이거 왜 이러지? 이거 왜 이렇게 나오지? 색깔이 좀 이상하네. 왜 분홍색으로 다 바뀌었지? 아, 스페이스바 누르면 점프 되네. 점프 되네. 여기 지금 보시면은 브레이크 타임이라서 예, 지금 이제 내 아바타가 가고 있는데 아직 영상이 안 나와요. 여기서 영상이 나온 (2시 10분에) 브리칭 더 멀티체인 월드라고 그 멀티체인에 관련된 이야기를 할 것 같네요. 카를로스 세라토, 데이비드 로제일 and others 이렇게 나와 있네요. 점프 점프. 여러분들 이런 세계가 가상 세계가 매트릭스 같은 세계가 정말 올 수도 있을 것 같아요. 그 레디온 고라고 영화 보신 분 혹시 계신가요? 현실 세계에서 살지 못하고 가상 세계에서만 사는 분들. 점프 점프. 한 2분 정도 남았네요. 예. 이게 소리도 나요. 제가 소리 껐는데 1인칭 모드, 3인칭 모드, 플라이 모드. 아, 플라이 모드는 안되네. 지금 브레이크 타임이니까 여러분들 뭐 담배 태우실 분 한 대 태우시고요. 물 마실 분도 물 마시고요. 원래는 이게 지금 여러 명이 같이 있어야 돼요. 근데 서버가 뻗어가지고 지금 저 혼자 있어요. 소통을 해야 되는데. 여기 메뉴에 보시면은 채팅창이 있거든요. 이렇게 사람들이 글을 남겨요 여기다가. 뭐 hello, tree bison, how friend, hi everyone, happy Saturday. How can I get back to the home island? Where is NFT? Utxo ahead. 이게 제가 새로 고침을 해도 안 되더라고요. 사람들 한번 F5 다시 눌러볼까요? 새로 고침 해볼까요? (1인칭) 모드, 3인칭 모드, 플레이 모드는 또 안되네. 아니 근데 이거 왜 색깔이 왜 분홍색이야? 아까는 컬러였는데. 메인 스테이지 세션은 끝났고 이제 유틸리티 세션으로 넘어가는 것 같아요. 아탈라 프리즘이라고 이제 찰스 홉스킨슨이 아프리카에서 이제 그 아프리카 에티오피아 신분증명 기술, 아프리카 사람들은 이제 신분 증명이 안 되죠. 뭐 주민등록증도 없고 뭐 알 수 있는 방법이 없어요. 이제 그거를 블록체인 시스템으로 카르다노 시스템으로 그 누가 누군지 아프리카 사람들도 신분 증명이 될 수 있게끔 핸드폰을 건네주면서 그거에 대해서 지금 말씀할 것 같거든요. 근데 이게 왜 이렇게 화면이 안 나오지? 좀 둘러볼까요? 구경 좀 해볼까요? 뭐가 있는지. 점프 점프. 여기가 섬이에요. 섬. 아일랜드. 카르다노 로고가 보이네요. 벽이 있네. 못 지나가네. 이거 하니까 뭐 2000년대 초반에 그 아바타 게임 하는 거 있잖아요. 그 뭐였지? 갑자기 생각이 안 나네. 근데 이게 지금 웹 브라우저 크롬으로만 구동이 된다라는 거면은 뭐 잘 맞는 거겠죠? 예. 크롬에서 지금 구동 중이거든요? 뭐 프로그램 제가 다운받는 게 아니라. 앞으로 미래에는 현실 세계에서 살고 싶지 않고 메타버스에서만 살고 싶어하는 사람들이 분명히 있을 겁니다. 영화 매트릭스나 레디 원고를 보시는 분은 알고 있어요. 다른 유튜브 거 한번 봐볼게요. 현재 어떻게 되고 있는지. 다른 유튜버들도 지금 놀고 있어요. 예. 아니 지금 영상 지금 안 나오고. 예. 지금 전체적으로 색감이 바뀌었네. 컬러가 다 보라빛으로 바뀌었네. 이 세션이 바뀔 때마다 색깔이 바뀌는 것 같아요.
So sorry about that. Had to run the dogs out. We're at the main stage. I think we're at like a lull when it comes to
버거성님이 말하는.
what's currently happening. Let's turn on the background music here. I think that there's a lull right now in the schedule. This is probably just so people can get food and whatnot.
이 유튜버도 지금 영상을 만들고 있는데.
Real Fi.
데이 1, 데이 2가 있어요. 오늘도 하지만은 내일도 일요일 이제 월요일이 되는 12시겠죠?
We're gonna do another giveaway here in just a second, guys. Let me just get close enough to the screen so I can hit the full screen button. I won't let you in this.
아 나도 여기 이렇게 들어가고 싶어. 왜 난 안 보이는 거야? 아 나. 저 새로 고침 다시 한번 해볼게요. 발표는 글쎄요. 제가 한번 다시 봐볼게요. 잠시만요. 메뉴를 보면은 여기 카테고리에 외국 유튜버 거 보고 계실래요? 잠시만요. 소리 끄고.
It's Big Jacko. I will reach out in just a second. So I can get you a little message here.
아 거북이 등에 섬이 있네. 아일랜드가 있네요. 거북이 등에.
It says you can't be messaged. Make sure you. Make sure you follow my Twitter so I can message you. If you don't follow my Twitter, I cannot message you. Once you've followed me back, it'll allow. Oh wait, no, I think you are following. I think it's just glitched. Give it a second. It's because I just followed you back. I won't be able to. I won't be able to message you for just a minute. But we'll get your message once we're done. Thank you for everyone who is sticking around and hanging out. You guys are amazing. Make sure you like the YouTube video to help push it to the top, and also continue to send it out. Okay, it looks like we are.
하는 것 같다. 잠시만요.
Go back to first person. And
The Asia Cryptozar at Bloomson, who basically needs no introduction.
가자.
And Opm Pellerin, the Chief Technology Officer, and Dinal Patel, Chief Product Officer. So let's get started. Charles, if you can talk a little bit about what is RealFi? Does the concept replace DeFi? Is it an evolution of it? Or is it something that can coexist? How do they align?
Well, first off, thank you so much for joining us, John. It's an honor to have you here. And, let's
잘
talk
소스키스
about the
나오네요.
industry and DeFi and RealFi. How do all these pieces come together? So decentralized finance is a kind of a term that's a bit nebulous right now. And it kind of stands for things like oracles and dexes and stablecoins.
오라클, 덱스.
All these other
예,
things
이렇게
that
돼서
we see
이해하고
crop up on
있네요.
Ethereum and other platforms. And usually there's some idea that these platforms are somehow decentralized. So they're different from traditional legacy providers like Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters and banks and exchanges like Coinbase. And of course, there's a varying degree of opinion on what does decentralization mean there. We decided
여러분, 찰소스키스는 1987년생입니다. 우리나라 나이로는 35살이에요.
And it's really a combination of a collection of things. And so first, we've noticed that a lot of DeFi applications tend not to have a notion of identity for their participants and users. And that could be identity in an abstract sense, not just people, but also devices, things, other smart contracts. And that's kind of a core building block if you're going to talk about the large-scale movement of information and value. Second, there's kind of the twin of identity, which is metadata. This is the who, what, where, when, how of transactions. And it's exceedingly important, especially in financial transactions, that there be rich metadata in them. And a lot of DeFi has inconsistent standards about how that's going to be applied. Third,
고생을 많이 했잖아요.
some notion of governance for these types of platforms. So how do they grow? How do they evolve? How do they change? Normally under centralized finance, that's very clear.
실시간 영상인데 잠깐만요. 실시간 영상이 아니라고요? 제가 확인해 볼게요.
Grow and evolve and change. But unfortunately,
실시간 영상 많네. 이거 다른 분 유튜브인데 다른 분 유튜브도 이렇게 나오는데 뭐 실시간 영상이 아니야.
Don't have the domain expertise necessary to understand what to do with them and how to evolve them. They just want to be consumers. Yet if not them having a say, then who does have the say in how these things evolve?
실시간 영상 맞아요, 이거
Then you have
지금.
the issue of standards and certification. We've seen tons of hacks. Some in the tens, some in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the DeFi space, and those.
이 지금 찰소스키스님 말하는 거는 녹화 영상일 수 있는데 이거는 본방이에요 지금.
And overall, the viability and growth of this ecosystem. So how do you ensure that they're secure and they follow standards and they're interoperable with each other? You can ensure them, you can regulate them. Speaking of regulation, how do you automate regulation so that regulation can work in a way where it's built right into the transaction itself? And then finally, there's a product market fit where a lot of these applications tend to
시간 맞구만 뭐야 자꾸 아니래.
affluent kids in New Jersey or other places. But then, the reality is, if you're talking about peer-to-peer lending, peer-to-peer insurance, a replacement of the legacy financial infrastructure, that's really a conversation for people who are underserved or unserved in those domains. So, for example, if you're a farmer in Kenya or a business owner in San Salvador, in El Salvador, a lot of these people pay 6% a month or more for lending rates, which is just absolutely predatory and usurious, but they do that because they don't have access to any other system. The point of RealFi is to say, let's put a combination of these things
이게 너무 찰스가 스피치가 좋아서 고급 용어들을 많이 써요. 그래서 일반 통역하는 분들도 엄청 힘들 거예요 지금 통역하는 게.
Important caveat here. We're not saying these things are compulsory. They're optional. The point of great systems and great platforms is that they give the people who build on top of them a
저도 예전에 이거 자막 한번 만들려다가 죽는 줄
how to
알았어요.
use that toolbox for their customers. And that's another point of saying that RealFi is a superset of DeFi because you can re-implement the existing DeFi experiences that you want just the way they are today, or you can continue to add to them And when we look at the regulatory environment, we look at where things are going, it's very clear that there's a demand for standards. It's very clear that regulation is coming for DeFi. For example, Uniswap looks like it just got some attention from the Securities Exchange Commission. There was a Wells notice from Coinbase.
아니 지금 다른 유튜버들 실시간 버튼 지금 눌렀잖아요. 여기 다른 유튜버들도 지금 찰스 호스킨슨 영상 나오고 나도 지금 여기서 찰스 호스킨 영상 나오는데 왜 자꾸 다른 영상이 나오는데?
To RealFi, to actually encumber identity and metadata, to create proper standards and make sure that they're secure and functional, and to also make sure that they resolve the issues of regulation and governance, and also they're in the market for new customers. Cardano has always been about entering the developing world. We really want to focus on the 3 billion who don't have reliable access to financial services. And if you look at a lot of the markets that we play in, we're super excited about bringing those markets in through identity and through wallets to the cryptocurrency space, and then giving them access to RealFi. So for the first time ever, they can actually participate in a global market fairly.
Okay, thank you. So identity is something that can easily be taken for granted. So what are some of the situations or examples of people who are living without identity, and what does it restrict them from accessing? Denal, can you take that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
무슨 소리인지 알았어요. 그러면은 잠깐만요. 다른 아일랜드로 가면 다른 영상이 나온다 이거죠.
A billion people have no identity, and many of those include subsistence farmers and refugees. And the primary roadblocks that keep these billion people locked out of traditional identification systems include.
지금 이렇게 라이브 뜬 데가 다 다른 영상 나온다는 거예요? 그러네. 여기 이렇게 라이브 이렇게 뜬 데가 다 다르게 나오네. 예.
Hi, my name is Dale. I'm the founder of HappyDAO. Our proposal is the CARDANO healthcare infrastructure.
이게 라이브 돼 있는 데가 다 어디로 갈까요, 여러분들? 여러 가지가 있는데.
Healthcare applications in blockchain. However, compared to DeFi or other decentralized finance apps, there's little growth on the decentralized healthcare application.
유틸리티 세션, 임팩트 세션 지금 라이브 실시간으로 여러 개를 동시에 하네요.
Developers have to think about data security, compliance, interoperability, and standards.
An implementation in a language of our choice and integrate.
뭘로 가야 돼? 뭘로 가야 영향가 있는
implementation
or
뭐 파트너십이겠죠, 당연히. 이게 메인 스테이지니까 이 영상 보시죠, 여러분들. 예, 메인 영상인 것 같은데 메인 스테이지.
Many projects with many different tokens, and one of the things that we're looking to do really is to enable this more frictionless DeFi experience with concepts like native stablecoins and oracles. Another big one is security. I mean, every other day you're hearing about a major hack. In Cardano, some of the things we're looking to introduce is a really robust certification framework.
임팩트 한번 가볼까요? 임팩트?
Really extends.
뭐라는지 묻고.
Accounting are all major issues, and so for us, our approach to solving this issue was the creation of Parametric. And now, what we've quickly realized was that the implications of Parametric are significantly greater than just being used by 10tree. Parametric has the opportunity to provide this seamless plug-and-play, you called it tree planting as a service, opportunity to organizations, individuals, businesses all across the globe to actually transition to a restorative business and offer their consumers and the supporters of their business or their brand the opportunity to see that business showcase their commitment to our planet.
And just to make that a little bit more concrete in terms of numbers, right? What kind of numbers are we talking about? How many trees?
In order for that to happen, we need to create powerful education resources that are accessible to everyone. As a businessman and as a team, we spend all day long thinking about how we can create real-world solutions for everybody that joins us. we've managed to attract a fantastic team of inspired people who bring passion and enthusiasm to this project every single day.
They were verified, but they have been
채널들을 좀 다 돌아다녀 볼게요.
after,
어떤 게 영향가 있는 건지.
They're like pretty safe, and you want to use this. Again, you don't want to look like what you have done so far. So this is like the first reason, like your team and your
메인 스테이지 가야 될 것 같아. 예, 이게 가장 영향가 있는 것 같아요. 차트 서비스 나오니까.
Go take this thing that is less stable to the thing that you're already used to having. So there's a comparability there in terms of user experience and ease of use that has to be resolved, and that has to be standardized across the entire industry for liquidity purposes. Second, you have to have the right collaborative model for getting these protocols into the hands of people who are in the jurisdictions that need them the most. So not everybody has connectivity, for example. And this is why we got partners like World Mobile.
잠깐, 뭐 트위터에서 나왔다고요?
We think a lot about a hub and spoke model where you have maybe someone in town who has an internet connection, and that person can serve an entire community, and it doesn't then require everybody in the community to have a cell phone or have internet connectivity and so forth. And that person effectively becomes a small business model for like a last mile issue. And then third, you have to have the right funding in this to ensure that these solutions can grow and evolve.
IOHK 트위터인데 어디 나와 있냐고.
Unique is that we have Catalyst.
파트너십 협약했다고 어디 나오냐고요.
Of ADA sitting there ready to be deployed for the community, that every like a heartbeat 6 to 8 weeks a new funding round begins, and those funding rounds basically allow the community from all around the world, they don't have to be from Silicon Valley or New York or Singapore or London, they can be in Kampala, they can be in Lagos, they can be in Batumi. It doesn't really matter.
나 진짜 강퇴해야겠어. 이제 매니저 하실 분 잠깐만.
Small, and let's go ahead and decentralize the access to capital. So if you have those three components of the right standards and the equivalent user experience to the legacy system and the cost level to the legacy system, you have the right business models in terms of the right
어그로 끄시는 분들 바로 그냥 차단할게요 이제.
Address connectivity issues and so forth, and you combine that with funding. I think that's really the secret sauce, and why we have yet to see a significant adoption of DeFi in places like El Salvador, in places like Argentina, in places like Congo or South Africa, the places that frankly need them the most. We're just not quite there. And then finally, you need to have a good story about how will regulation be addressed in the future for all of these things. And what makes this such a complicated discussion is that you're dealing with a transnational regulatory problem. So everybody tends to think, well,
어딘데? 링크 줘봐요, 링크. 채팅창에 링크 써봐요.
In some cases, that doesn't matter at all. The regulations that may be relevant could be 12 other countries that have nothing to do with the U.S. Treasury Department. So the question is, how do you, in an environment where you could build an application where literally you could have users from 150 countries concurrently who are small value, and there's no central reporting entity, how do you ensure that those 150 different countries are happy? And if they're not, well, how does that get sorted out?
여러분들 저 채팅창에 쓰는 말들 믿지 마세요. 그냥 다 그거니까.
Traditionally, there was a gatekeeper.
뭐 채팅창에 뭐 호재가 있다, 뭐가 있다, 절대 믿지 마세요.
The person you're creating the account with would be held liable if there was a problem to that, and they would make decisions of whether they wanted you as a customer or not. For example, many people in the United States who try to get bank accounts abroad, because the cost of regulation is so onerous.
잠깐만 누구 좀 불러봐 누구.
It was very difficult for me as a US citizen to get a bank account in Switzerland. And it was very difficult for our company to get a bank account in Hong Kong when we were there with HSBC, not because of local regulation, but because of compliance with the US regulator. Well, you can do that as a
파운데이션 가볼게요. 카르다노
you can't do
파운데이션.
that as an open access protocol that welcomes everybody and serves everybody. So the big meta challenge, in addition to those three sub challenges for growth and adoption, is how do you actually create a system where people can have their cake and eat it too? And basically the system self-regulates and self-maintains, and it has things like consumer protection. It has things like transparency.
파운데이션 트위터 왔어요. 어디 있어 구글?
It's not money laundering or terrorist financing or these types of.
구글이 어디냐고?
That's the great balance.
파트너십이 어디냐고?
What's really cool though is that we see a lot of proactive regulatory innovation happening in the developing world. where
없잖아.
these countries are actually encoding in their laws standards.
누가 저 페이트님인가? 저분 좀 강퇴 좀 시켜줘요. 아, 나 진짜.
Or other things we've seen where they've said, hey, Bitcoin is now legal tender. It's pretty cool to see that, and that bodes very well for functional automated regulation to actually be baked inside of the protocol. And I think those factors together are the glue that's going to bind a migration of people from the legacy system to the new system.
아니 인풋 아웃풋에도 없고 파운데이션에도 없잖아요. 뭘 자꾸 있다 그래. 왜 자꾸 거짓말해요. 사람들 헷갈리게.
And also the ability to access emerging markets, which collectively are worth trillions of dollars, but are currently inaccessible. Roman, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, two things. One is interoperability is needed between systems. So like you said, we need standards to be defined. So people who are in different countries can actually interact and through a smart contract. Because if you can't connect your system or define your system through the smart contract, you can't interact, basically. So enforcing interoperability standards.
잠깐만요. 본보기를 한번 보여줘야겠어. 누구야? 이상민 차단. 이상민 차단 또.
Being sure that the model that you handle, the data that you share can be consumed elsewhere. For example,
이상민 차단했어요 제가.
I moved to the US. I actually lost my banking history and my health record. Right. I was a newborn here in the US. That's an example of disconnected systems. So interoperability is required, but you also need security. And the security is absolutely essential for RealFi.
지금 여기 있는 분들 다 지금 파트너십 때문에 지금 민감해 죽겠는데 지금 어그로 끌 때냐고 지금!
The financial operating system of tomorrow. And in order to take this responsibility, you need to provide the security associated to the users and also to the developers of the smart contracts that are going to encode processes in the blockchain and describe and define services. So we have things in the pipe for this with certification, verification of smart contracts.
Okay, great. And so now let's talk a little bit more about some of what this means for users in kind of the wider ecosystem and the world. So, if you can maybe just elaborate on some of the things we've discussed. For instance, safety. So how does IOG's research-led approach to Cardano make it a safer solution for DeFi? Charles, can you take that one?
It's kind of a funny thing where you have these systems that are valued now equivalent to what you would expect from a Fortune 500 company that has decades of legacy, armies of scientists, armies of engineers, and then you have all these kids running it, and when something breaks, they say, oh, well, it is what it is, open source project, buyer beware. I think the industry has to have higher standards about quality and about safety.
매니저를 못 줘요. 줄 수 있는 방법이 없어요. 지금 제가 방을 잘못 만들어서.
True. When you talk about the world of protocols, the assurance is from science. So when I say something is provably secure, when I say something works, when I say something can defend against an adversary, we have a standard that we've been following for over 40 years in the academic world.
제가 여러분들 저기 파트너십 나오면은 바로 알려드릴게요. 지금 여기 채널 여기저기 돌아다니면서 좀 제가 찾아보고 있거든요. 트위터나 이런 데 보면서.
Agencies trusted for classified information. So we think we should use those same processes and standards about getting to truth about resilience against adversaries and engage the same institutions. So,
아직까지 파트너십 뭐다 이런 거는 지금 나와 있는 정보가
academics,
없어요.
professors, graduate students, postdocs, and go through the same burdens that they have to go to get tenure, i.e. publish, write papers, have those papers go through peer review. If anything, because then objective third party, neutral third parties can come in and say what is true, what's not true. When you ask anybody, is your product great? Is your product safe? Is your product, oh, of course it's great and it's safe and it's secure. It's just like going to a drug company. Is your product safe? If I take it, will it give me the things that you want? Well, before the FDA existed, We had people going around mixing mercury and cocaine together and putting a little bit of radium on top and saying, this will cure all that ails you. And they said, yeah, okay, maybe we should change that system a little bit. They said, perhaps you have to provide evidence of the claims that you
여러분들
make.
이게 통역이 쉬운 통역이 아닙니다. 진짜로. 진짜 어려운 고급 단어들만 쓰고 있어서 일반 통역하는 분들도 어려울 거예요, 이게.
Now, on the software side, you also can do evidence. And this is used all the time in the aerospace industry. This is done all the time in building trains or other things where you have systems where the failure of that system results in the loss of billions of dollars or life or both. So every single time you get on an airplane, every single time an astronaut gets into a rocket or a space shuttle, every single time
체인링크 협약은 이미 있었던 얘기예요. 그게 무슨 협약입니까?
all of those
체인링크는
things, if
이미
that fails, you're dead. And so you have to use different standards for how you write that software and a chain of evidence that the software was written correctly. And we have so many examples where every now and then we kind of didn't measure up, like the Boeing 737 MAX that crashed in Ethiopia. And it turned out that there were some very significant and severe software issues there alongside design failures in that system, which would have been resolved with the use of formal methods. So what we do is we take formal methods engineering, which is a subdomain within computer science, and we apply those techniques and tools to translate the science that we write into
잠깐만요, 여러분. 제가
Now,
다시
why is
차단해
this
볼게요.
not done
제가
in
잘못했거든요,
Silicon
차단을.
Valley or in industry? Well, because it's very, very methodical, expensive, and perceived to be quite slow. So the real innovation that
제가 부계정으로 차단을 잘못했어요. 예.
how do we over time build processes and systems where we can apply these two things, the peer review process and the formal methods process, with not necessarily a heavy touch and not necessarily a light touch, but just right, that Goldilocks zone for the class of protocols that we have, so we don't have to wait 10 years for something to get done. You can get things done in months to years that normally would take decades under the old model. And the advantage of that is we catch a huge amount of bugs, design flaws, or semantical issues up front before that software is deployed to the customer. Second, by doing that, you eventually can upgrade those tools to a point where those tools become accessible for small to medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs.
어그로 누구예요, 어그로?
Apply a light touch to ensure that their dApps and their applications are actually successful. So one of the beautiful things that's an output of what we've developed is that we actually have multiple certification partners that are presenting here at the conference, and from QVIC to runtime verification and Twig and others, who actually have tools and techniques that a dApp developer can utilize.
구독자가 왜 680명밖에 안 될까요? 제가 이거 만든 지 한 달 됐거든요, 채널. 그만큼 AI에 관심 있는 분들이 없다라는 거예요, 여러분.
And ultimately, what does that mean? Less DAO hacks, less Thor chains, lots of all of these types of things that we've seen in the industry, so that there's a higher degree of certainty that these things are built correctly. So it was very expensive to get here. We as a company, I think, probably have spent well more than $50 million getting those processes right over the last 6 years. And we've had to work with many different people in industry, like we're founding members of the Haskell Foundation. We've invested a lot of money in formal methods tools. We've become core developers of the classical Haskell compiler. We have a lot of experts in formal methods.
제가 지금 채팅창 보고 있어요. 보고 있으니까 아까는 부계정으로 잘못 차단해서 주계정으로 차단할게요.
Cardano smart contracts in general, specifically to assist that. But that all of that infrastructure was built to be a toolbox for the application builder in their decision about what is the Goldilocks zone of quality and assurance for their application. Furthermore, the academic process that we followed has inspired dozens, if not hundreds, of scientists that we've never met, we don't pay, to come into our industry and start writing papers in our industry. And what that means is you have a culturally neutral, linguistically neutral, gender neutral viewpoint of these things, where suddenly there's no founder, there's now a decentralized brain that encompasses the academy, and they know that by publishing papers and doing research in our industry that they can actually get tenure. There's been over 111 papers we've written as a company.
여러분들 구독하고 좋아요 좀 부탁드릴게요. 한 번만 좀 도와주세요. 카르다노 제가 영상들 많이 올리고 여러분들 투자하시는 분들 정보 좀 많이 좀 올려드리겠습니다.
So that ensures the long-term viability and the vibrance of protocol innovation. because you don't need a central entity. You have a web of universities that are always refreshing and renewing. Every year there's always new graduate students coming in. Every year there's new people starting new things. And there's many governments and other entities, student tuition, that fund that innovation. So there's a diverse set of funding as well for constant protocol innovation. So it's a beautiful ecosystem in that respect, and it's really come together, but it was tough to get it to that point. It took years and well more than $50 million. So I would
설문조사했는데 지금 막상막하네. 3,300원 넘을 수 있다가 55%, 아니다가 45%네요.
How will this work in, say, low infrastructure regions where internet access isn't a guarantee? Janelle, can you address that?
Well, specifically to different wallet solutions, we're building a range of different wallet solutions for different stakeholders. So we recognize the fact that these stakeholders might have different devices, from feature phone, smartphone, a laptop. And one of the things that we're doing specifically for the unbanked segment, who we know might not have connectivity, is we're partnering together with a number of providers who have low-cost hardware wallets, which are capable of holding their value and also their identity. And all these users need to do really is just to present this card at a point of interaction and authenticate themselves, and then they're able to benefit from a lot of the capabilities that we're enabling through the CARDANO platform.
Okay, and Romain, maybe you can talk about what are the benefits of developing this in an open source way.
So blockchains are decentralized networks, and so open source is mandatory to run an operating system and develop an operating system at a large scale globally. So open source facilitates collaboration. You can look at the code, you can bring the new features that you want to see in the system. You can review features and prioritize features. So there's a strong need or benefit for coordinating development in a large-scale community with contributors from everywhere in the world. It's also important for that no one owns the protocols, right? So it's in open source. No one owns it. Everyone can contribute.
지금 협업사가 나온 것 같은데 잠시만요, 여러분. 제가 이거 좀 링크 좀 보내드릴게요.
When you contribute, you can actually, since we have the same code base, you can look at who is contributing. So you can actually organize the development. You can retribute developers for their contributions, for example. So open source is absolutely mandatory for us. If we want our protocols to become
네, 베리트리가 지금 맞는 것 같고요. 잠시만 기다려주세요.
The security brings security for the code base, because everyone looks at it. So the more eyes you have on a crypto primitive or on a networking protocol, the better quality you'll have at the end. Everyone can review and verify that everything works correctly. Even the users can, since smart contracts on-chain are in clear, you have the code source of the application available to you, right? So you can verify on the fly that you are interacting with the right.
제가 지금 정신이 없어요. 지금 이것저것 하느라 여러분들이 다 영상들 못 봐요.
That has been validated by the community. So openness, transparency, all of this is absolutely required if we want to become the standard for finance.
자,
okay, and Roman, can you talk
보이시나요,
a
여러분들?
bit also about volatility of fees, for instance, being a sticking point in adoption in the smart contract space. So how is IOG looking to change that?
파트너십 어나운스먼트 리스너 스포츠 팬.
Ways of dealing with this. So the first one is actually reacting to the movement in prices of the base layer currency. So we have protocol parameters we can adjust to actually compensate those price, but we are working on stable fees. So using a stable coin to pay the fees of a contract. And what we also announced is the Babel fees, the fact that tokens can actually use their own token to define fees, and for the users to pay for a particular service relying on a particular token, this can be paid in a particular in the
파트너십 발표 스포츠 팬 여러분 이 거인과 힘을 합쳤다. 소식을 전하게 된 것을 기쁘게 생각합니다. 라이벌 e스포츠 GG. 이건 아닌데.
Has been validated by the community. So openness, transparency, all of this is absolutely required if we want to become the standard for finance.
Okay, and Romain, can you talk a little bit also about volatility of fees, for instance, being a sticking point in adoption in the smart contract space? So how is IOG looking to change that?
So we have several ways of dealing with this. So the first one is actually reacting to the movement in prices of the base layer currency. So we have protocol parameters we can adjust to actually compensate this evolution of price. But we are working on stable fees. So using a stable coin to pay the fees of a contract. And what we also announced is the Babel fees, the fact that tokens can actually use their own token to define fees, and for the users to pay for a particular service relying on a particular token, this can be paid in a particular in the underlying token. So I'm sure Dinal and Charles have ideas on this.
Yeah, I mean, predictability of cost is an absolutely essential thing for infrastructure. Could you imagine building a business where they say, okay, well, the cost of electricity could be $10 today and tomorrow $1,000, and your margin's $500? You'd say, well, some days I'm making great money and other days I'm actually losing money. How do I know? And they say, well, you can't. And that's basically where we're at when we talk about computational infrastructure for smart contracts. There's a huge amount of volatility, and the other thing is that there's two competing demands that tug against each other that are irreconcilable in a certain respect. So one demand is this demand for Bitcoin-style economics, where you have a finite monetary policy, cap supply, and use and utility creates appreciation of the underlying asset. That's what we've seen with Bitcoin. But then for a computational fuel, what you care about is predictable cost. Okay, so you want that to be stable over a long horizon. You don't want it to do this or do that. You want it just to do that, because then I can make a decision, does this make sense for my business model? And ideally, you'd like that cost to actually go down or stay constant with the set of users that you have. So what that means is that you need to have the accommodation of both these monetary policies in order for the system to be stable and sustainable. And so that's one of the things that we've been looking very closely at. Can we construct fee models and structures where you can enjoy Bitcoin-style monetary policy, but at the same time, when you're talking about the consumption of computational fuel, that actually has some sort of price stability about it. And so we have some great papers and ideas. We published a blog post recently on Babel fees. We've been talking about stable fees for a while. And what's nice about the design of Cardano is that this can layer quite beautifully on the system that we have. And then with community consent, the community can make some decisions of how close to the protocol do they want these things to be. They can run as layer 2, they can run as applications, or they can be built into the protocol itself. And, you know, the people are in charge. They'll make ultimately the decisions of where they want to go and what they want to do. And we just kind of provide options. Now, one other point is that whenever you talk about complexity, complexity is usually in a diverse system handled by heterogeneity. So, for example, human beings were very complicated compared to single-cell organisms. Okay, so what do human beings require? We have eye cells and nerve cells and heart tissue and reproductive tissue and so forth. So we have different cells that are specialized for certain tasks, and they work together interdependently, and they create one organism that's then capable of dealing with a more complicated environment. Well, similarly, when you talk about the need for DeFi, suddenly you've gone well beyond a store of value and push transactions like where Bitcoin exists. Now you're talking about identity, and you're talking about metadata, and actually you're talking about specialization, where certain actors in the system form certain tasks and utility. So, for example, the existence of proof of stake admits the existence of a stake pool operator. That's a specialized piece of tissue in the system, and that allows then acceleration and unification of faster network broadcast and all kinds of things that allows a more complicated organism. Well, you can reuse that infrastructure for other tasks, especially for computation. And this is the power of things like Hydra and the power of things like sidechains. The existence of SPOs means they can maintain the consensus of not just one system, but many systems, and those other systems can have different computational assumptions. The main chain can be Plutus and the extended Utxo model, which the Ethereum people seem to love a lot today. Or you could have another chain, which is the EVM, or another chain, which is LOVM, that's Yella, and then suddenly you have legacy programming languages that you can bring in. All of those can live in one system. Different competing computational models with different monetary policies, different computing fields.
이제 말 막 하시는 분들 지금 차단하고 있습니다.
Actually be hubs for distributed computation. So that means the more stake pools that you have, more parallelism you get in the processing of smart contracts. So overall, the more resources that are available. This is what we mean by building a sustainable but scalable system. Those are those two hallmarks. And then in an interoperable system, that third hallmark of a third-generation cryptocurrency, the ability to do many things that allow specialized tissue to form within inside the system. So it's a bear of a problem, and there's many moving pieces, and that's why being the CTO and the chief product officer of this organization, two of the hardest roles, because you kind of have to be both wide in your skill sets and deep at the same time in your skill sets. But we've managed to, I think with Cardano, get the right balance of things. And that wasn't for lack of trying. We spent about 6 years very clearly thinking about this model, and we have, I think, the right set of features and functionality that will enable this interoperable, scalable, yet sustainable system and achieve that dual monetary policy goal of
well, just
Bitcoin-style monetary
what
policy.
What are the benefits of this? How does it work for everyone? And kind of what's a takeaway that you want everyone to get?
Businesses on these systems. Well, I think the final takeaway,
okay, thanks, Charles.
at least
so
for me,
actually, we just have a few minutes left.
The
so
building
maybe
of Cardano has been like
a
spiral. And when that spiral is very tight, you can only do a small set of things. But then as the spiral grows, you get larger and larger, grander and grander, more and more people come in, more and more entities come in. And now we're in a position where there's more than a dozen development companies that just worry about the infrastructure of Cardano. And there's tens of thousands of people actively involved in the governance of Cardano, and there are thousands of stake pools involved in the maintenance of the ecosystem. And that's where we're at today here in 2021. And what's beautiful about this is baked into the DNA of the system is this idea of progressive decentralization and
지금 조금 렉이 심하네. 잠시만요.
on board that the project is stable and it's going to be here forever. It's just a question now of what level of impact are we going to have, and ultimately what use and utility will this paradigm be most useful for. My belief is you could run a nation state on this type of infrastructure. Not today, but in 3 to 5 years, definitely possible. My belief is also that this is going to give us a lot of real-life data about how to do governments differently. A macro problem that you see in society as a whole is people are fundamentally unhappy with governance. That's why we have the protests. That's why we have so much lack of trust in institutions. That's why basic things like do vaccines work or not, there's so much skepticism of that. Under ordinary, normal circumstances, people would trust institutions. They'd say, oh yeah, everything's fine. But now no one trusts anything. There's always a conspiracy theory somewhere lurking somewhere. And so that it tells you that there's an appetite for new systems, new ways of governance, new types of institutions. Instead of saying trust us, says can't lie. Instead of don't be evil, it says can't be evil. These types of things. And what Cardano is trying to do is position itself in the marketplace of ideas to be a legitimate option for at least some of these systems and some of these institutions. Now, I'm an ambitious guy. I'm kind of young. So I'd like all the institutions and all the systems, but you know, maybe we get just voting, or maybe we just get payments, or maybe we just get a better way of running the currencies of nation states that's a bit more fair and it can't be influenced or coerced by politicians. Who knows where that gets cut? But of course, if we are lucky, my belief is that ultimately it's going to push us towards a much more fair, transparent, open, and decentralized world with systems that aren't so volatile, where some days they work, some days they don't work, some day everything is great, the next day it's 2008 and the whole market's collapsed. Some days you're happy with your voting system and then you're not happy the next day. I don't think any of us like living in those worlds filled with so much inconsistency, and it's about time we get back to stability and normality.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Romain, Dinal, Charles. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Goes down, right? I think it's critical to those billions of users we want to onboard on Cardano that these services, partner services, are always available 24/7 to be able to send value all around the world. And for that, I think that the problem is that currently we have two ways of deploying these services. Two models for hosting these services, which are ad hoc deployments. That means that you deploy these services for your own project. That's probably expensive and difficult for projects that are built by a small team. They don't have a dedicated team to keep the infrastructure up and running 24/7. The other option is using some service as a service infrastructure like in Ethereum, Infura does, which is good because these specialized companies have the expertise to keep these services highly available and in a scalable way. But that's not good, so good for decentralization, because the system becomes as decentralized as its least decentralized layer. These services, if you have one application running on Infura and Infura goes down, then you don't have a fallback plan. I linked a couple of links here to expand on those issues. So what's the proposal I have to solve this? The proposal is to add a third option, which is a network that adds multiple and diverse providers that you could use for your decentralized applications. Our focus will be put on empowering stateful operators because we think they are the perfect candidates for building this network because they are already skilled system administrators, they are already familiar to Cardano. We have a good amount of diverse operators. So
I immigrated here from Israel, so the
stateful operators is by facilitating the deployment of these services, by facilitating the monetization of them, building open source tools. For example, my partner Giovanni, who also has a Fund 5 proposal, he will be building an API authorization mechanism that protect these backend services using NFTs that will not only allow the monetization, but will also help increase the transaction traffic on Cardano, giving back this way some ADA to the treasury. If these efforts are fruitful, we'll end up with a decentralized offer of API services in a cooperative but also competitive network that make it efficient. And our dApps will rely on a much more robust solution.
My name is Torben. I'm 35 years old, living in Germany, and I studied electronic engineering and automation. In the last 10 years, I worked as a software developer for many different projects, and also attended to the British Pioneer program. I hope you enjoyed the video and got a basic understanding of what Solid is and what problems it solves. If you have any proposals or suggestions what can be done better, or if you have feedback in general, feel free to approach me. I just want to add, the system is scalable to more or less any service that you can deliver over the internet. Also, we are still looking for people which want to work with us together on this project. I thank you very much for your time and your attention, and please support us with your feedback, your comments, and especially your votes. Thank you very much and enjoy the summit.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and I'm participating in the Catalyst Fund 6 grant proposal call for projects. I am working on a program to support developers with designing and testing their Cardano smart contracts. It will also empower others in the community to explore the blockchain for clearer communication and better understanding of how smart contracts work. In design mode, the palette along the top will have all the options for the various nodes most common to building out smart contracts. As this gets built out, you'll be able to input more specific information about what each transaction handles, and companies will be able to personalize it with branding. Once you have all your nodes connected, we're going to draw a few in here. You can hit the auto layout button and the graph will be normalized. In addition to the auto layout, we will also have a series of common smart contract protocols that can be used as starting points for creating your own. We'll also have a copy function so that any layouts from Explore mode you find, which we'll look at next, can be copied over and modified. Now we're in Explore mode, where I've taken a transaction hash right from Cardano scan, from the mainnet this time, and I've pasted in, and the application does the rest. These graphs are made to be read left to right. The dark gray rectangle in the middle here represents a transaction, the transaction that we called. The circles on either side are the UTXOs that are the inputs and outputs from that transaction. These labels underneath the UTXOs show us how much ADA is in each of them. Off to the left, we have these lighter links and rectangles that represent the parent transactions from upstream that led to the current UTXOs used in this center transaction. I have a way for you to play around with this yourself. Now, this is meant to be primarily a desktop application, but after MinSwap launched the first smart contract on the Cardano test network, I thought it would be fun to shoehorn it into a website so the community can kind of look at it and play around. Now again, I want to emphasize this is a very early prototype, so please be patient with it as it loads, and it's not yet suitable for mobile, so please look at it on your desktop or your laptop. So if you go to manzano.studio, and that's spelled M-A-N-Z-A-N-O, I have preloaded a MinSwap transaction that you can get to by clicking this Try It Out button. And again, please be patient as this loads. So we have the same rectangles and circles as we saw before, but now we can see the MinSwap icon indicating which transactions belong to the protocol, along with a label underneath showing what is happening at each transaction. I can click on this MinSwap transaction and start following the protocol back. So you can see before we had a deposit, now we have a swap. We can click on it again, and we get another deposit. I can follow these MinSwap label transactions back about 20 steps or so. We're not going to do that right now, but it gets us to the very initial transaction that started off the whole protocol. You can click along either direction. You can follow any of these all back. And if you want to play around with it, clicking on this Try It Out button will take you right back to where you began for you to play around again. Obviously, this is a work in progress. As it gets built out, these movements will be saved so that you can walk back and forth along the network. There will also be icons for all the different tokens in each UTXO, different icons for different smart contracts as they become available. And there will be an option to select an NFT and follow it all the way back to its initial minting transaction. So, if you enjoyed this demo and are interested in seeing this project get funded, please head over to IOHK's Project Catalyst Fund 6. Votes towards my proposal increase my chances of getting funded and will help move this project forward. And you can see the name of it right here, Visual Blockchain Design and Explore.
So, how many times have you had a great idea that you thought could change the world, make people's lives better, or perhaps even make you a fortune? How many times have you spent countless hours surrounded by code, confused about features, and frustrated about progress, only to discover that the idea perhaps wasn't as great as you thought it was in the first place. Sound familiar? Well, I can tell you, having worked with many dev teams over the years, this is something that plagues many, many software projects. And as building on Cardano increases and the ecosystem increases, this frustration is also going to increase. One well-proven way of mitigating this risk is to focus on users, their needs, motivations and behaviours. Now, whilst it's true every project may not have a UI, each will ultimately have an impact on humans because it's humans that will consume the services. We use user-centered research and design to unlock these for your projects. We would like to initiate a program of work that helps projects building on Cardano build faster with less risk by giving them access to these user insights that are actionable for their projects. Our mission is to make the Cardano ecosystem more human. By creating a knowledge base that we can share amongst all projects, ultimately, everyone's a winner. Take a look at the proposal, give us a vote if you like it. Thank you very much.
Hello, this is Matthias Sieber. It is with great pleasure that I am presenting you Blaze.io, the marketplace created on Cardano. With the increasing adoption of Cardano as a platform to build new decentralized applications, we have already identified several common projects at the core. Developers across the ecosystem really waste a lot of effort and time by doing duplicate and repeat work. And as we've seen with the testnet phase of Alonso, Plutus in itself does not prevent
이 DC 네트워크라는 회사가 순이익이 1.6조 이상 3년 연속 돼 있다고 하네요.
And focus on the specifics of your marketplace. The solution is to build a marketplace creator.
순이익 1.6조 이상 3년 연속이면은 뭐
I'm going to give a short demo in a second. We will provide sensible defaults. Even the core functionality will be built as plugins that can be extended or even just exchanged. We will open source the code for Blaze. Alright, demo time. Let's start Blaze with Blaze New. Here we give a project name like win-win dispute resolution, a short description, bringing mediation to Cardano, for example, fixing ADR, the blockchain, something like that, making the world better for all, because that's why we're here. Next we have a selection of base currencies. Right now, initially actually for 2021 we'll only support ADA most likely, but starting with 2022 where we are also integrating fiat gateways, of course ADA support will be improved, but also support several stable points. And then the whole plugin selection will be more detailed. And that's essentially it. So we scaffolded a project. So we are a team of developers and Plutus pioneers. We are Cardano enthusiasts. We are a team of 12 people for this project. We have allocated, including myself, 5 people in total. But there's also the opportunity for other team members to be pulled into the project as needed. All right, let's take a quick look at our Plutus developers for this project. First, it's me, yours truly, and Ganesh, Eli, and Angela. We're all Plutus pioneers. Next, we have David Bradley, who I've worked with as well for a little over a year on another project. He will be doing front-end development. And last but not least, we have Victor Corsino, very well known in the Project Catalyst ecosystem. He has been elected the representative for all community advisors for the Catalyst Circle and has created many community tools. So he has a programming background, but he will take on a project managing role for this project. For the remainder of September and leading into October, we will be finishing our requirement research. We have been approached by other projects throughout Catalyst, and we want to make sure that we are prepared to support them as best as we can. At the same time, we are defining our system architecture and begin development of our base layer core components that are implemented as plugins as well. Our aim is to launch the MVP on testnet in November, and then with a full launch in December, and that launch will actually include the launch of Win-Win Dispute Resolution Marketplace. At the same time, we are hoping to support the Proposals Mentors Marketplace from another Project Catalyst team. And in Q1 of next year, we are planning to release a meta marketplace where you can buy, sell, or share plugins for Blaze. And also we are hoping to start development of a shared housing marketplace on Cardano as well. I've created a shared housing application with Eli and David over the past year, and we hope to rebuild something like that on Cardano. These are our success metrics, so it is along the lines of usage really. In summary, we are creating a marketplace creator tool. We will be launching 3 marketplaces by the end of Q1 2022. Feel free to reach out to me directly via Discord or just visit our website at blaze.io. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Adriano Fiorenza. I'm the founder and developer behind Game Changer Wallet. So, Cardano is awesome, right? You can do a lot of crazy stuff with Cardano. But it's a rising ecosystem, so it's okay if for builders and new users it gets a bit complicated. User interfaces on wallet are complex, integrating the code is complex, there are infrastructure barriers. So what you're needing is a friendly, gamified, and powerful Cardano wallet. And actually, you already have one at GameChanger.finance. So we're going to take a quick look of it. This is a light web wallet, non-custodial wallet. And it's very gamified at its core because everything is graphical. Everything that you're going to be doing here is graphical. For example, quick look. For sending assets, you're just going to be using an interface similar to a game inventory, where you are going to be picking items and choosing a destination for them, for example, this address, and voila. The address is the wallet is going to calculate the fees and minimum ADA values. Everything is going to be easier for you. You have also an NFT minter inside the wallet where you can mint your NFTs and collections. And for builders and students, you have this interface that is going to allow you to build DApp connectors, decentralized applications. By just using this code, this simple script based on JSON, you are going to be able to use the wallet. For example, here we are sending ADA to this address. This is going to be turned into a URL that you can put on emails, on a tweet, or on your own decentralized application websites. Basically, what I am requesting on this Catalyst Fund 6 proposal are funds to improve the overall wallet and to make the underlying infrastructure scale more. I'm using Dandelion APIs. That is an awesome product. And you have to know that by voting on this proposal, you're going to be helping not just Game Changer Wallet, but the entire Dandelion network, because I'm going to be sharing nodes with them. And that means that other developers are going to have this benefit as well, to count on these nodes. The other part of the funds are basically for improving the code, adding smart contract support, and decentralized application discovery hub built in within the wallets. Well, the team is very small. It's myself. I've built this wallet MVP in these within 2 months. And there is a lot of stuff to build ahead, and I am proud of having friends on the Cardano community, like Dandelion APIs, Gimbal Labs, and
협력사 파트너십
with them.
핵심은 오늘의 핵심은 DC,
and we're working day by day with them. Well, the roadmap is basically what I said. In this next 6 months, there's going to be an improvement.
포춘 250대 기업 안에 든 업체예요. 순이익 1.6조 3년간 유지된 기업이니까.
For audits, you can just use Cardano metadata right now, because everything that the wallet do gets stored on the metadata regarding decentralized applications. So you can measure the number of use of connectors being used on the wallet, and much more stuff. Well, this proposal is very important because there is other collaborations and proposals that depend on it. So please vote this proposal and help us grow for you and for Cardano. Thank you very much for your time.
내일도 하니까 데이 1, 데이 2가 있거든요. 내일 12시, 저녁 12시, 월요일로 되는 12시에.
Everyone, my name is Tim O'Brien. I'm the proposer for a project called No Code Smart Contracts in Fund 6. A little bit about myself. I'm an ex-Googler and founder of QModeler, a developer of a no-code development platform that targets blockchain. So rather than talk about no code, I'll just do this little example. So on the left, you see palette, and it's got 3 icons, and the user is dragging these icons into the center artboard and connecting them, and then we'll see them connecting ports. And while he's doing this, he's essentially building a full blockchain application that in the end we'll see this exported into a smart contract. And this is how we build smart contracts using a no code. So on the right, you'll see a guidance system, and we'll go into that more. So now we're connecting, and connecting the application, and we say fix it. We see that here, we have multiple ports, and by clicking and doing what the guidance tells it to do, we've connected the right ports. But how did we know how to connect the right ports? Right here, we'll see that, okay, we have only 3 components, but we do have the ability to connect components in multiple ways. So from 3 components, we can have many, many applications, dozen, maybe over 100 applications can be made only from 3 components. And our product has dual boxes with many more components, dozens and soon hundreds of components. So how do we actually determine what the components are, what the user should build, and so they don't make mistakes? So we use something called temporal logic. Temporal logic is nothing more than a logic statement. It sort of like describes what has to do, but gives a dimension of time. So you describe what should happen and what shouldn't happen, and if you collect enough of requirements, you do a good job of collecting requirements, then our product can guide you and tell you when you've connected something in the wrong way. So here's an example of temporal logic application. It's a simple build, ship process. And here's another one that describes the temporal logic around deciding to ship on multiple options, FedEx, mail, etc. Each on the below we see that we call it the DNA. It's the unique temporal logic description for this application. So let's talk a little bit about pebbling. What is pebbling? Well, pebbling is a board game, 14 and up. And it's also the subject of a lot of research because it happens to have a property called being Turing complete. And Turing complete means that it's equivalent to any language you know, Java, Python, whatever. So that's a very good property to have. As you see, we move pebbles from registers to registers. We call the squares
여러분들 오늘은 이만 할까요? 일단 파트너십 오픈됐으니까 나머지는 그렇게 영양가 있는 영상이 나올 것 같지는 않습니다.
So what is pebbling? Just to sum, it's Turing complete language.
내일도 있으니까 한번.
Any programming language you might know. It's a board game, and it's also the subject of hundreds and hundreds of research papers because it has this unique property of being Turing complete. It also happens to be how we perform core logic on blockchain smart contracts.
여러분들이 원하셨던 파트너십은 일단 오픈이 됐으니까
so
나머지는 기술적인 그런 내용들인 것 같거든요.
It's easy to compose. It's very easy to formally verify, and we can do it almost in real time. And in fact, our guidance system is run by formal verification. And data is local to the operations, so we can now decide what operations need to run on the blockchain and what run off-chain, and then we can use off-chain and on-chain in a very creative fashion without losing any of the transparency or any of the advantages of using blockchain. Best of all, none of the stringy if-else logic that creates so many bugs and is so unreliable. So what is this project about? So this project is about building a small adapter on Plutus that will let us use pebbling in order to determine the logic that runs on Plutus. So what does that mean? That means basically any of these applications that we design on QModeler that we see on the left, we can have a drop down and deploy them to Plutus. We'll do a little small demo here. So on the upper right hand side you'll see we have a selection of Ethereum. We can decide the name and we'll drop down here and select the account that's used to deploy. We can hit deploy and it deploys for us. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll just give a last minute pitch here. I think it's really, really valuable for Cardano because it can bring instantly hundreds and thousands of applications because we simply can modify one of these projects that we see on the artboard here. We can build entirely new projects. So, and you don't have to be a coder. So we're now pioneering the idea of no-code hackathons where we bring in groups to solve major issues of the day like food poisoning and sustainability, cold chain, etc. So it can really be great to engage the entire community on something that's very, very important to solve. And I think it'd be an excellent use of your vote. So please vote for us. Thank you.
순이익 1.6조 이상 3년간 지속됐다라는 거, 건강한 기업이라는 거.
Welcome, warmly welcome from Vietnam. Welcome to CARDANO Summit.
뭐 내일은 어떻게 될지 모르겠지만 일단 오늘은 저 방송 여기까지 하겠습니다. 그 나머지는 기술적인 분석에 대한 내용이니까 이건 제 방송으로 봐도 솔직히 될 것 같으니까.
As you know, Euroi have English language, and this is barrier for many Vietnamese end users.
너무 여러분들 그 실망하지 마시고요.
Digital access from one to one, from one to another. So my proposal
내일 11시 정도에 방송 한번 다시 켜볼게요.
By doing so, I believe that more and more people will have more flexibility and confidence when they use Yoroi in Vietnamese language.
저 같은 경우에는 뭐 2년 3년 계속 갖고 있을 코인이라서 뭐 솔직히 뭐 이거 지금 당장 내려가도 상관없어요. 저는.
More and more confident, more trusted in Yoroi or in the gateway of CARDANO infrastructure.
아직 DF 시장이 지금 출발 단계이기 때문에 크게 솔직히 관심이 없었어요.
Xin chào các bạn đã đến với CARDANO Summit. Theo thời gian vừa qua mà Tiến đã làm những cái dự án và trao đổi với lại cộng đồng người dùng ở Việt Nam khi họ dùng Yoroi thì họ cũng gặp một số cái khó khăn.
제가 좀 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 이제 스마트 컨트랙트 DF 시장이 출발이 됐다. 이제 DF 스토어, 플루투스를 통한 DF 스토어가 나왔다라는 거.
Cái dự án này của Tiến sẽ nhằm mục đích là chuyển đổi cái ngôn ngữ từ tiếng Anh sang tiếng Việt để cho nhiều người dùng hơn nữa biết được đến.
제가 영상 듣기로는 이제 일반 웹 브라우저에서도 DF 스토어가 연동이 돼서 연결이 된다라는 거. 예.
làm cho cộng đồng CARDANO rất nhiều và làm cho mọi người dùng với sự yên tâm và với tâm thái rất là nhẹ nhàng và tin tưởng.
예, 여러분 저기 오늘 방송은 여기까지 하고요. 저기 구독 좋아요 한 번만 부탁드릴게요. 예. 내일 뭐 좀 상황을 봐서 다시 한번 예, 방송을 한번 켜보겠습니다, 여러분. 남은 영상들은 재방송도 하니까 예, 재방송을 한번 봐주세요. 예, 여러분 수고하셨습니다. 안녕히 주무세요. 예, 좋아요, 구독 부탁드릴게요.
Hi, I'm Peter.